How's that, guys? Volume check-wise. Good? Sounds good? I'm getting thumbs up. Seems good. Alright. Ziz, I think it's time, bro. I think it is time.
Time for what?
Time for the podcast, bro.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
That's
shit.
what we're doing.
Wow.
I'm not ready for this.
G'day, guys. ZIGGYD here with Ziz. How's it going, bro?
Hi, Zizaran here.
Oh, there he is. Oh, I'm messing with the camera a little bit, but it's all good. Welcome, guys, to the once tri-monthly EXILED podcast.
Wow,
So,
Legacy put a Comptar style.
Yeah.
That extended too much.
I know, we had a pretty good once every 3 month streak going there, right?
Yep.
But then, well, then Legacy was like 6 months long, so now it's like the twice a year podcast because of that. Yeah.
It's okay, we'll catch up. We'll do another one soon.
Ziz's background is too low. Look, alright. Look, I'm a professional streamer. I did this in the background without being able to see what it was. Look, I can... There we go. Now, hold on. There you go. Look at Ziz's background. That looks so good. Perfect.
I can't see anything wrong. Oh, I see.
It's all good.
Beautiful.
Don't worry about it. So, on the EXILED podcast, we often talk about... Well, pretty much, we've only ever had one topic for the show, which was how to start strong in... The following league that is about to occur. In this case, 3.0 Fall of Oriath and Harbinger League, which has seen a great many drastic changes to the game. The death of the ailment system, to put it dramatically. Though,
NES.
maybe not in quite... yeah, NDS, and a huge number of other, like, smaller changes, but those are two massive ones, which definitely have a bit of an impact, but surprisingly, we were talking about this last night, surprisingly, a lot of starter builds are still kind of the same ones. It was more like the later on stuff you would transition into that tends to get affected by ES changes and ailment changes and so on, huh?
Yeah. Actually, with the new changes in the patch notes, ailments are probably moved up a little bit. There's a bit of a band-aid fix at the end, so...
When I was talking about the death of the ailment system, I was kind of quotation marking that a little bit because now that there's actual passives, like every single weapon cluster has ailment stuff on it now. Especially Bleed looks like it might end up still being pretty decent, and one of the starters we have here is Sunder. And I think Sunder Bleed with potentially a new Keystone, just as a way of scaling your damage, like 30% more damage, something like that.
Yeah, it'll be a decent thing to pick up for the points, so...
Yeah. So
especially since Thunder attacks so fast.
Oh yeah, you'll get those stacks easily. So that seems like it has some potential. But we're going to go through some starter builds. We're going to talk about just kind of the general meta stuff. And then some of the new stuff, like the new skills, new and changed support gems. There's quite a bit of those. Just want to mention the banner rewards so that everyone's clear that they've changed. Chill and Shock changes a bit. Some uniques. Looks like Ziz has pulled out a few uniques there. Some strategy. And at the very end, we'll kind of like talk about spoilerish stuff. So we will be avoiding spoilers if you've been trying to avoid spoilers. We will be avoiding spoilers as best as possible. Okay? We'll do our best for that.
We'll try.
Yeah, we will. So, let's start builds. I'm gonna start with one of yours, Ziz.
Mm-hmm.
How about Warchief? Tell me why Warchief is included in this list as like a beginner starter build.
As far as I know, in the gem stats, for like if you see like there's a new stat web page that actually pulls all the gems, and Warchief is like the number one in a lot of the stats depending on like what level range you're looking at. And so it's always really been a strong candidate for starters and stuff like that, and it didn't really get nerfed. In fact, Warchief has sort of gotten buffed if you're using it in Sunder or Cyclone builds because of MAME. But even on its own, it's just so strong. It gets like really, really high health. It gets really high damage, really good like layered survivability, especially if you're Chieftain. And if you don't like care that much about your survivability, you can go Berserker.
The MAME change, or the MAME that Ziz mentioned for clarification, is a new support gem that when a target gets maimed by the linked skill, it applies a debuff that causes any other physical damage they are taken to be amplified. So it's more multiplier to the physical damage taken from other sources, including your main attack. So it can work pretty well with that.
Yeah, it's very, very handy. And it is actually a more multiplier, even though it's worded very, it says increased on the gem, but because of the way it's worded, your enemies take more increased or take increased damage. It is actually a more multiplier.
There we go. Sorry if the audio was a bit out, guys. I've just fixed this there. So how do you recommend, as far as a league starter for Warchief then? Because Warchief is like as generic as it comes in terms of multiple different ways to play it, like setup-wise. What would you kind of say would be the highlight for you?
Well, I usually, when I do it as a league starter, I normally do two-handed and do like the normal melee thing where you take Cleave and Molten Strike until Sunder. Once you get Sunder, you do that until you're level 28. Once you're level 28, you pick up the double totem node, and then you can use just any random. I generally avoid specializations until I find like a good weapon, like a really good two-hander. So if I find a really good mace, I'll go maces. If I find a really good axe, I'll go axes. But I'll put that off as long as possible. And I prefer like the cheap axe uniques like Home's Primacy and Hasmanas. I prefer those to like. Don't feel like there are that many options for the others. Suppose there's that sword, the one with like jagged edges. Kondo's Pride?
Kondo's Pride, that's the one, yeah. I was going to say, there's basically a two-handed unique in every category that can be used quite well with Warchief, and they're all pretty common, so after, even in the first few days of the league, a couple chaos, you can get some of these guys started, and if a particular one is expensive, you can just do a different one, and then change the passive tree slightly, and all the clusters are near each other. I'm pretty sure we've actually had this in one of the previous episodes, so not too much change there.
And generally I go Facebreaker later on because it's so much easier to apply Fortifying, stuff like that.
Yeah. Potentially you could use the new MAME. If your damage is coming from the Warchief, you could use the new MAME like on your shield charge or something like that to MAME enemies. So, or depending on setup, if you're going like attacks yourself and using a Warchief to help, you can you can swap it around, stuff like that. But yeah, for a pure Warchief, that's a potential thing you can do. So I think there's not too much else to say about that one.
Yeah, and you've been playing Glacial Cascade Mines, right?
Yeah, let's do the Glacial Cascade Mines. I've kind of nubbed this podcast up a little bit. It's okay. Look, you guys can just look at my Steam for a second while I boot up the game, because I actually wanted to show some of this stuff in game, since I have that capability, since we have the beta.
That's good. I like it.
I know, it's pretty cool, right? So let's have a look.
It's like a laid back podcast. I like it.
Yeah. Actually, so we were talking about just doing this podcast a little bit more chill, because I didn't have any time to prepare like a lot of this stuff. Like, I do plan on making build guides for the two builds that I'm going to talk about here on the two-sided builds I'm going to talk about here. But man, it's been so flat out trying to get ready for 3.0, eh? So,
yeah.
Glacial Cascade Mines. Firstly, let's talk Glacial Cascade. This skill right here, man, got some serious love in 3.0. So the first thing they did was buff the damage. They just made it stronger. Secondarily, they converted it to full physical with cold conversion, which is a very important and significant change, because it means that the skill ends up being a lot stronger to scale. You can use things like physical scaling. You can use things like rustic sashes. So I'm talking physical scaling like the fizz nodes in Shadow, and you can even use things like these physical and the added chaos ones. You can use things like fizz to lightning efficiently now. You can use things like added fire. Actually, in Path of Building, playing around with that, added fire and fizz to lightning were like more damage than controlled destruction, and like crit strikes and crit multi and things like that as well. So turn yourself up. Ziggy, am I too quiet, am I? I can turn myself up a bit. I'm surprised that I am so quiet. Hold on, let me test something. Let me test something real quick.
And something else that's really good with the Glacial Cascade Mines being reworked like this is it makes it a lot better in parties when you're using like a Sunder person, because now like Hatred will actually scale your Glacial Cascade Mines. So it's a lot better for parties now.
That was the other thing I was going to mention, actually, was I just highly recommend running Hatred in general. I feel like I am really quiet. I don't know why I can't turn my audio up. Alright. Hopefully that's reasonably balanced, guys. Loud enough? You're fine? It's good? Alright.
Yeah. I can whisper.
Yeah, just whisper for me, sis. I don't know why I'm whispering. Yeah, I do recommend running Hatred. Again, like, it's able to leverage that. 36% of physical damage is extra cold damage, so that works quite nicely. But I'll show you Glacial Cascade Mines, because this shit is very fun. Okay, let's go have a look here. I'll just pop in a cemetery. So this character's like 86, using Tremor Rod. So another good thing about this build in particular, using Glacial Cascade with mines, and I'll go into why. It's particularly tasty with mines in a second, but there's no gear requirements for this sort of a build. You can later on get things like an Essence Worm Hatred for Mind Over Matter to have, you know, more effective life. And Tremor Rod is the only mine unique that exists in the game. And it's pretty common and usually pretty cheap. Even if a lot of people end up playing mines, I still feel like it'll only be a few C at most. So it's and it's also optional. You don't even need it. You can just go like a dagger and shield, and it's just fine. But here's the reason why you go Glacial Cascade mines. You ready? You ready for this, guys?
I'm excited. I haven't seen this that much.
Oh my! You haven't seen this? Oh my god!
Nope.
It's so.
Is it juicy?
It's so juicy. It's so juicy. So,
wow.
This is with concentrated effect, by the way. This AOE. So that's with concentrated effect, screen-sized AoE, and it does clear just beautifully, as well as having enough boss single target damage to kill the buffed life bosses in 3.0. So Cascade in general is going to do pretty well with that, but mines especially as well have a lot of burst. So it just plays really nice as you basically just move between bugs. It kills things, man. It kills. Oh, you're telling me to go kill things. I am. There's stream delay. You'll see in a second.
Oh, sweet. Oh, this looks what?
It's really, really fun. So people always say that mines are really clunky. It's really not. It's really, really smooth. Like, there's so many quality of life features for mine builds in the game now that I can, like, while hosting a podcast, still play and have this be a very smooth experience. I don't need to, like, pay that much down. I'm probably gonna die here because I'm, like, talking to you and looking at the other screen, but...
That's really good. Actually has DPS, Ziggy. What have you done?
I know, right? And it can kill bosses, man. It's crazy.
Wait, hold on. Really?
It can kill bosses, man. I've been doing red maps even on this and been able to kill bosses just fine. Works really nicely. There's just so much quality of life in terms of like mine placement speed. Tremor Rod has a lot of juiciness on it. You can get a detonate mine totem where you place the totem down, link it to the detonate mines gem, and then as you just spam your mines, it just detonates them as fast as possible. And then you can do fun things like detonate mines linked to cast on damage taken, so that when you take damage, this is like the strongest cast on damage taken set I've ever seen, by the way. When you take damage, your mines will proc and just kill the enemies. That's like, that's the best defensive proc you could possibly have, is just everything dies. So that works quite nicely. If I walk in here and place my mines and just wait for something to hit me, they all die. So that's pretty satisfying. But it's, go ahead.
Have you been like waiting this long with showing it off like in its full glory just to make sure it doesn't get nerfed?
Well, I've been streaming it, but people just don't believe. Like, there's always this idea that mines are really clunky, and I feel like it's a you know, a misleading, a smokescreen thing that's been perpetuated by mine players who didn't want their one unique to raise in price or something. I don't know. It's tinfoil hat. But it's actually really fun. So I wouldn't just take it based on, you know, me playing here on the podcast, but there's a lot of good stuff here with the Glacial Cascade change. Glacial Cascade scales really well with mines because of the penetration with all the elemental scaling you can get. Elemental scaling is going to be a big theme of 3.0, as you'll see. And 88% increased area of effect when you have all your mines placed, which is what gives you that screen-sized AoE clear. It just works so tastefully. I feel like
you have to go kill the boss to back up your claims now.
All right, okay, I'll go kill the bosses. I think this is the try-boss one. Keeping in mind that this is podcast action.
I'm kind of hoping you die, actually.
I probably will, because there's, what, 2,500 people watching, and it's podcast, and I'm like, okay, Ziggy, let's not embarrass ourselves just here. You know, I feel like I should get some credit for just having some balls in terms of doing this live. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
It looks really good, actually. I'm surprised.
The boss is over there. Yeah, I know, like, I've been blown away. It's my first mine character ever, and there's just no required gear. It does so well for leveling as well, like, from Katava onwards, all those bosses are just, like, a breeze. Like, it's the easiest leveling I've had out of anything in 3.0.
Bex just tweeted, fixed an issue with Glacial Cascade where it would actually deal damage. Sorry, Ziggy.
Oh, you know what? I think I know what's going on with my audio, actually. Skype is adjusting me. Hold on.
Oh, that makes sense.
I will... Hold on, guys. 1 second. I'm going to take a short break while I fix this. Because I think this is worth fixing. Skype, why you do this shit, man? How do I change this? How do I fix this? Oh my god. Fucking Skype, man. Why do you do this to me? Is this tolerable if I put myself on webcam?
What happened to your voice?
Can you hear me okay? Like, I've put you on my webcam audio, but everyone else should be unaffected now.
Okay, right,
Does that
so
work?
it doesn't sound like this for them, right?
No, but it sounds pretty bad for you, right? But
yeah.
you can still understand me?
Terrible. Yeah, I can hear you.
Is it good enough?
That's fine.
Alright, okay. Alright, we'll go with that. How is that better, guys? I might be a little loud now, even. There's an echo. There's two sounds. Ziz echo? There's echo. Oh my god, alright, never mind. Never mind, I'll just change back and we'll just tolerate it. Fuck. Stupid audio. Oh,
Some are saying it's way better.
Some are saying it's better?
Oh, wow.
Ah, whatever. Whatever. We'll just continue on. Alright, Ziz wants to see me kill this boss. Let's go embarrass myself. So, the only thing with mines is they're very expensive, so you run like a Vile Clarity.
Yeah.
I'm running Mind Never Matter, which is a lot of builds are going to run Mind Never Matter to get a lot of extra mana and give you that room to place all your mines. But you run that Vile Clarity. Just, what? What is chat going? Fuck chat.
I don't feel like taking input from chat is always the best thing.
Yeah, I think we're just going to roll with it. You can deal with it, chat. I'm sure it's not that bad. Apparently Ziz has an echo. Echo was when Ziz speaks. Is it fine now,
Am I a ghost?
Is it fine now, though? Can you
Am I
guys
echoed?
just be real with me for a second?
It sounds fine.
Okay, it's fine? Alright, good. Fucking chat. Alright, let's do this thing. So mana cost is very expensive, so what you'll typically do is place this, you'll throw all your traps for a damage bonus, drop this guy, and then just kind of spam this. Almost two-shot that boss.
I'm excited. I'm on delay, so...
And there they go. Not too bad, not too bad. Could have been done with a little bit more elegance. So you can throw down the Frostbomb traps to debuff them, and having your traps out also gives you a damage increase as well. But plays very nicely. It's very fun for killing bosses. So I've had a good time with that one. So that's
actually great.
Thank you. I do recommend playing. So a lot of people are going to be playing Glacial Cascade. I think it's okay to play it as other setups, but I think it really shines as mines. Because when you play it self-cast, even if you get a fair bit of AoE scaling, you tend to like miss half of the pack. Are you like, hi Ziz. Looking.
I'm looking up at you.
Well, you're looking up my skirt or something, are you? So it just scales really well with mines, and I've had an absolute blast with that for something that just requires no gear. And even if you do want to get like a few items for it, Tremor Rod costs like nothing, and then later on you don't need Essence Worm, but it's an optional extra for later on. So not too bad. Not too bad. So I thoroughly enjoyed that one. I think we're gonna go to one of your builds now, Ziz, since you've been making fun of me this whole time.
I don't make fun of you.
Oh, so
right.
If you're looking for a guide for that one in terms of passive tree and stuff like that, I'll put together a build guide for that before launch. So that's what I'm going to be doing today after the podcast. So we'll see how that goes. Sunder Ziz. This is I think this actually might be the best on the list.
Okay, so Sunder's a skill that doesn't really get used a lot. Nobody's probably heard of it, but it is surprisingly strong. No, seriously, on a serious note, Sunder and it's between Sunder and Warchief as like the powerhouses of especially early game right now. They are, I usually prefer one-handed Sunder because you can use the fake offhand so easily. Now, just to explain fake offhand to new beginners, is that Sunder will always only use your main hand for damage. So even though it will affect your tooltip, if you put like something with 1 or a million DPS in your offhand, that will affect your tooltip, but not your actual damage. So you can use something like, for example, there's a unique called the Princess, that has physical damage added as extra cool damage. That will actually affect your damage. So you can use like cool uniques or early on rares with resists or weapon elemental damage. Pretty sure WED works. And that will actually affect your real damage output. And that's very easy to check in, for example, a program like Path of Building. So yeah, Sunder is insanely strong. And I made like a early beginner guide for that is on my YouTube. And probably one of the most like quality of life leveling experiences early on. and it like stays really strong to lane game too.
It's the definitive racing setup at the moment. It's just Sunder. Like the race like speed running setups are like a Marauder Sunder or a Duelist Sunder setup, generally speaking. And it's just because like it leverages weapons with low DPS well. It leverages weapons with good DPS well. Like you clear very fast with them. You can still kill things when you have low DPS, when you have like bad leveling weapons. It's got great single target, great AoE clear, exponentially increasing AoE based on the size of the pack. Like the skill is just an absolute machine ever since they changed it a while back.
And it got buffed with the addition of Maim as well, like we were talking about earlier. Putting Maim on your Warchief, just more damage on Sunder. Thanks. And it's so accessible. You can use literally everything except swords. So you can use maces, axes. You can use two-handers, one-handers. It's very, very easy to do like solo self. So many good uniques for it as well.
I think like the most popular we're going to see is like one-handed axes Berserker and one-handed axes Gladiator. And I especially want to mention Gladiator because before you made this guide, it wasn't known that GGG was planning on putting bleed on everything. But now the passive tree has bleed nodes everywhere, and every weapon cluster scales bleed. So you can, like Gladiator Sunder, which was primarily just for the bleed explosions as a way of boosting clear speed, will now actually deal some bleed damage, and it'll be something between like a 15 and 25%, maybe even more multiplier, just for your like overall damage output. So, and you can potentially take that new bleed keystone, which will be down the bottom, and work that in, but you don't really need to do that much for it. I mean, the chance to bleed gem is flat physical damage anyway, and is often worth using, especially for leveling, and that adds some bleed, so you can get some from that. And there's like nodes that just have bleed, and axe nodes will have some bleed on them, so you can just get a bit of that from a bunch of different places and have it just be a damage scaler, and it works pretty nicely. So we'll see a fair bit of that.
Slayer as well will probably be played quite a bit.
This, if you have no problems playing Sunder, then and I wouldn't really worry about it if you're like, oh, I don't usually like playing melee. It's not really melee, so it's okay. You basically like AoE packs from across the screen, so it works just fine.
There are very few ways to balance actual melee in games like this as well. It's sort of like real life. If someone has a gun and you have a knife.
This is not balance. That's not balanced, Ziz. That's unfair. Can we nerf guns and buff knives?
Exactly. So you know, it's never gonna be balanced. But yeah, definitely a very strong, and like, even if everybody plays Sunder, right, it's not really going to be, it's not like it needs particular uniques, it's all rare. So yeah, it's like jewels and stuff like that might go up in value depending on how many people play builds like that. But you don't have like, oh, Ziggy made a really popular build with this one unique, like Pyre, for example, or something even slightly rarer. So that's very good. There's nothing that's going to like cockblock you for playing it.
I forgot there might be spoilers in the build guide videos. I do apologize, guys.
Oh, shit.
Okay, so when I said there was going to be no spoilers in this podcast, I just outright lied to you guys. I apologize. Oh well, I mean, there's probably only like 5 people who have avoided every spoiler. I don't know. I'll do my best to avoid some spoilers, guys. Just close your eyes or something. I don't know. Fuck.
Just listen to our serene voices.
Just listen. Oh well, you can never trust you again. Oh, chat, I'm sorry. Any other words on Sunder? I mean, it's gonna be like definitive starter / leveling / racing. There's not much else to say about it. And apart from the bleed stuff, and what was the other one? Maim. Not too much has really changed. Really?
Yeah, so it's pretty much just the bleed stuff, and I mean, it got buffed in 2.6, I think it was, so it's been a while.
Yeah, I played a Glunder? Well, that's a Gladiator Sunder build, so I'm just going to call it a Glunder build from now on. I played a Glunder build in 3.0, and that was really fun and really nice to play with, even with dodgy gear. And I leveled that solo self-found and then only transitioned to bought gear like later on, and that was really fun. So that's just going to be stronger now with the bleed changes. So even though we're talking the ailment system being a bit, weak overall at the moment, the Glunder build is going to be good though, guys. It is canon now. Glunder.
Please, can it be? That's amazing. I might actually go Glunder.
Glunder. Oh, you're gonna swap from Berserk. You're gonna swap from Berserker to Gladiator just so you can call yourself Glunder build. Love it.
It's tempting.
Love it. So let's go back to one of mine now, and then we can blast out a few of yours that you've listed out here. My next one that I want to talk about is, this is only on a character that's only just reached endgame. So this is a level 72 character. I actually played this earlier in the beta, and have gone back to playing it again after some changes just to test if it was still good, because it was absolutely insane before. But after some changes, and even indeed after some nerfs, it turns out that it's still extremely good. And that is Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray, Righteous Fire, Mind Over Matter, Inquisitor. So, a few things. Mind Over Matter now affects damage over time. That's a big change. It's worth mentioning. Just makes it better in general. But it also means that you can use it to do things like support Righteous Fire, because 30% of the damage taken goes to your mana. Does mean you need a fair bit of mana regeneration, but thankfully there's a few things going on here. Firstly, Mind Over Matter gives you a shitload of mana, but and there's quite a bit sprinkled around the place. But one of the juiciest things here is, let me grab a map. What do we got here? This character's only just started maps, so we find like a tier 3.
That must have a good single target, right?
Yes, it does. It has pretty good single target and pretty good AoE clear. The only thing is, so the way you'll typically level a build like this will be like Scorching Ray plus Firestorm Totem. And that works pretty well, but it's okay. Like, it's okay, and then it starts to just really kick into gear around like Act 5. And then you'll just be like, whoa, I'm just starting to melt bosses all of a sudden. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that's changed with Scorching Ray. The burning damage support is now a more multiplier, so that ends up being pretty tasty. It's 51% more burning damage here at level 17. Efficacy, which is a new one, gives duration, which is good on Scorching Ray, more damage over time and more spell damage, so that ends up being very, very tasty. But as I was talking about, Righteous Fire burns your mana, but this character is got some of the highest mana regeneration I've ever seen. So it's 137 mana regeneration right now. Check this stuff out here. So it's now 499 mana regeneration? I think it gets over 500 fully buffed. So during combat, 500 mana regeneration per second. So it has 1100 unreserved mana. So even when you take all of that, in 2 seconds it's fully recharged. And it's more than enough to offset Righteous Fire. So basically Righteous Fire will clear for you regular mobs, so you can kind of just move through regular mobs like that. And for anything tougher, unless you get stun locked on a pack like that, you can Scorching Ray them. And then the stacking Righteous Fire and Scorching Ray debuffing works really well on bosses as well. So this is, as I said, this is kind of just a character I slapped together in the last couple days with gear that was available at the end of the beta with no one trading, and
it's pretty
you just
good.
kind of get your life mana gear, and it just plays so very nicely. This is like one of my favorite builds of recent times. You have all these stacking debuffs. You have things like Flammability available on Orb of Storms, Elemental Equilibrium, Elemental Overload, Scorching Ray debuffs the enemies, and then you got that like synergy between Righteous Fire and Scorching Ray, which both scale with fire and burning damage. And damage over time, and it just it works really nicely. But the best thing is here is that this works just fine without Righteous Fire as well. So as far as a league starter is concerned, because I think there's going to be a lot of Righteous Fire builds, right? We're going to see a few of those guys. So Rise of the Phoenix is potentially going to be a little expensive at the league start. The good news is that it works just fine without Righteous Fire, and I think you could do up to red maps easily, damage-wise, and probably even do everything you wanted to with just Scorching Ray, but you can, I think the sacrifice later on for the extra damage from Righteous Fire and the extra clear speed, and just kind of that quality of life is quite nice, but it does clear everything in one pass, even without Righteous Fire, so it works really nicely.
What do you prefer between this and the Glacial Cascade mines?
I'd say the Glacial Cascade mines is a bit funner because it's more like crit cold, everything pops and everything blows up kind of deal.
Yep.
But this has definitely been up there as well. I played a bunch of different builds. I've tried to play a bunch of ailment builds and stuff like that, and these two builds are just so much more fun. But let's pop this over here and kill these bosses. So these guys burn down pretty quickly, even with that buffed boss life. Works really nicely. I'm using Arcane Surge on Orb of Storms as well, so that
it's a decent single target.
Yeah, it works pretty nicely, man. I'm pretty happy with it.
And what level are you here?
Level 72. This is a level 70 zone.
So you're level 67.
No, I'm level 72, and this is a level 70 zone.
Yeah, but it's the beta. So you're missing 5 points.
Oh, right, yeah, missing 5 passives. I getcha. Ah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I started doing maps at like
even
65
stronger.
and it was fun. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't have Uberlab or anything either, since
Wow.
I didn't get to unlock that. But do recommend. I think Pox put out a Scorching Ray guide on Trickster, which if you just want to do pure Scorching Ray, then I think that's a pretty good choice. The reason why Inquisitor is that it supports Righteous Fire, which allows you to scale damage even further, so it gives you that like next step of scaling. And then Inquisitor just has some really nice stuff. So Augury of Penitence, which is what you get from I got it for leveling and then respect, and you'll get it back at Uberlab. But this is a more multiplied of damage taken for enemies and also decreases the damage you take. Instruments of Virtue gives you spell damage, cast speed, and attack speed just constantly. Like makes it really fast and smooth to play Scorching Ray. Gives you that turn speed and the ramp up and your movement speed. And then the Consecrated Ground with the 6%. This was buffed as well. 6% of maximum mana and energy shield regen per second. Oof. So it's the mana regen from that as well. So life regen, mana regen, damage buffs, speed buffs. It works out really nicely for Scorching Ray, especially if you want to go that Righteous Fire action. So yeah, pretty big fan of Scorching Ray in general, but I definitely like the Inquisitor setup for that. But again, Trickster is also a great way to go, and Pox put up a build for that. I'll try and get this build guide done before launch. I'm trying to do 2 after this podcast. We'll see how that goes. So, that is it for me from the 2 starter builds that I wanted to recommend. Ziz's next one. Go ahead.
So next up, we have Summon Raging Spirits, which has always been pretty powerful. It's actually been buffed as well, even though it did get, I think it was a 15% nerf. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's 15%. It has been buffed because the melee damage on full life gem has been changed to attack damage on full life, something like that. Either way, it'll affect not just physical anymore, it'll also affect elemental. So that's a buff for ranged, elemental, and anything. It's great. It's great now. It's damage on full life, I think it's called now. It's also, you can use it with, what's the fire one? The new one? I'm bad with names.
Immolation.
Immolation, yeah, you can use that with SRS now as well if you use something else to ignite. So Fire Trap is an easy way to ignite, Flame Dash, but either way, there's a lot of ways to like ignite, especially against bosses.
I mean,
so
SRS always ignites stuff. You always see stuff on fire when you're playing an SRS build.
I'm pretty sure that makes that you can't ignite if you use that. I think you have to ignite with a different source. Unless I'm wrong.
I might have missed that part. But nonetheless, you could run like Fire Spectres or something like that to get ignites.
I'm sure chat can tell us, just so we don't say anything wrong. I'm pretty sure you have to ignite with a different source.
Okay. Ruthless is another option as well that I was looking at for.
Okay, you can ignite with it, so that's you don't need to ignite with something else.
Sweet.
It's good we have chat to back us up on that. But SRS is also really strong as a starter because of starter recipes. So you can like make a +1 minion helmet really early on with a recipe, and you can like look up vendor recipes on the Gamepedia. Just search for a minion. That's very, very strong early on, and obviously you can put SRS in a +1 fire early on, +1 fire wand. So like through the game you have like really nice recipes, and by the time you're like 50 to 70, then you'll be have the option of buying 5 links from PoE trade depending on how fast or slow you're going. So very, very strong early on, and you can like cast so many of them before you enter a hard fight, so they can like zerg down things. Very, very nice leveling experience, and especially if you're Necro SRS, which is normally what you do, then you have the option of you can do zombies as well, you can do specters, and minions in general have gotten a lot of love this patch. It's very, very strong early on.
It's funny, all the other minions were buffed and SRS was nerfed. SRS is the only one that got nerfed, the rest got buffed. But
and SRS is still really strong.
Yeah. No, they were so strong that they can weather that buff, and the other things that have been implemented, kind of counteract a lot of that. So you're not going to notice the SRS nerf, I don't think.
And that's another thing that you can still do with like CI builds, because you were never leeching anyway, and you can go into low life later on. It works great with minor matter as well and auras. So you have so many options with SRS, and another really good thing to do solo self-fan, because you don't particularly need any specific uniques. It might kind of be more fun to do this solo self-fan, because I feel like the Baron is going to be a hefty price this league.
So I was just about to say, I know you guys love when we mention uniques on this podcast, because then you're like, no, my starter build, unique price. But I think like the best thing to end up doing with SRS like this is to go into the Baron. So the Baron is a helmet where you stack strength, which gives you a shitload of life, and then that strength gives you minions, your minions damage scaling. Like it gives them the strength bonus to them for damage scaling. So that ends up just making your SRS just get really, really tasty. You don't even need to go zombies with Baron, even though it's a zombie-themed item. And SRS Baron Zombie is something I've seen a fair bit of in the 3.0 beta, a fair bit of before that, and is like a very nice kind of like next step in scaling. You don't need anything to start with SRS, like I said, it's a great solo self-found build and great league starter, but that is like the kind of, you know, the big next step in terms of scaling. But
Yeah.
Sorry guys. Sorry for
and like
unique.
the footage you're seeing as well in the background, that's just SRS on its own. It doesn't have any like specters or anything, and it's shredding things. The footage is also like self-found. I have no items. In fact, the stuff you were seeing there is like 30 points into cold damage as well, because it was like a really unoptimized build. So yeah, it's pretty strong.
Why did you have cold damage?
It was a build used for other stuff. I
Okay, all right.
didn't have a choice in the matter.
I like how you left your death in there at the end. Those is,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
But yeah, I would say SRS is very, very up there on like solid starters, and you can still like elemental animate should still be very strong, so that's something you can transfer into later.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to mention is it's super flexible. You can go pure SRS, you can go into animate weapon, you can go into SRS Spectre, you can go into zombies with Baron if you want. You can do Baron SRS. Like you got heaps of choices about how you sort of transition from there and play to your liking. Like for example, I like SRS Spectre a lot. I just like that play style. And there's a lot of new fun Spectres to play with too. So summoners in general are pretty exciting. And there's even the new archetype of Skellymancer. Using the new Skelly Mages too, you could potentially level as SRS and transition into that later. So
yeah, and zombies have been buffed as well a lot. And as you said, like specters, especially the vertical fire carpets are pretty fun.
Vertical fire carpets.
The like ribbons. Fireball ones.
The ribbons.
Yeah, those.
Vertical fire carpets. Okay. Alright.
They're good though. I like those.
Oh my god. Alright, next.
And we have other builds as well. So
we do. We have lots for this time for you guys.
Flame Blast Totems. Flame Blast Totems is still very strong. I'm a little unsure, but like when I was playing it in the beta, the Ignite was completely ruined. I think there were some last minute changes that makes the Ignite slightly stronger. So makes it a little bit more doable again for Witch with the free Proliff. I probably wouldn't go Proliff with Templar anymore. But so the standard cookie cutter Flame Blast Totems. Very, very strong still, and works both for Witch Elementalist and Hierophant and Inquisitor. So you have those. And something that's very similar to Flame Blast Totems that I also tried out a lot is Frostbolt Totems. Especially once you get those 2 Threshold Jewels. Very, very nice as well. And both of these totem builds, like they don't really require any specific uniques. Same thing as all the other builds. Like we've been trying to pick out starters that, I mean, obviously, like SRS has some things like Baron that like is really good for it, but with all these, they're generally like doable completely soul self-found and with only rares. And then you have like the end game scaling potential with like Dorianis, or you can go Shavs late game. So you have a lot of options for both early game and late game without it being like ruined with a lot of other people playing it.
Yeah, this is like the definitive, I want to play this before transitioning into another build while saving up money or solo self-found or whatnot. It's like 90% of people play this just as a leveling setup before transitioning into something more expensive. Like you always used to play this to go and transition into like Val Spark, for example. So, it's a great way to get started with just about anything that's kind of in that area of the tree on those classes. But it's definitely something you can stay with as well. I feel like
you have to bring it up, man.
Val Spark. I'm sorry, bro. You got new skills to play with now, Ziz. It'll be okay, bro. I know you're excited about Charge Dash. We'll talk about that soon.
Yep. And as like a final starter build, that's really good. Something I did a while ago, which is still pretty relevant now, is either Moonbender Blade Vortex or Hrimburn? What's the like not upgraded one called? Hrim Sorrow. Hrim Sorrow, and what these do is convert 50% of your physical damage to elemental. So either of them will be pretty easy to get. I think Mathil as well is doing something similar. And then Fist of Lightning is very, very strong. I've done it on Assassin and I've done it on Inquisitor now. And because there's so much elemental scaling early on and elemental overload, it's so easy to scale in like the top trees. So Blade Vortex, and you can do Blade Vortex as like physical if you're Pathfinder, for example, as well. But I really enjoyed doing Elemental Blade Vortex, especially because of Elemental Overload. It's so easy to scale.
I personally loathe Blade Vortex. I find it the worst, but it is, especially with that elemental conversion, undeniably very strong. And I've seen some like Blade Vortex Inquisitor setups and stuff like that looking very, very attractive. So
yeah, and Mathil has a really good guide for that, I believe. So should be easy to follow, and it's very, very strong. As I said, scales very well as well. And same thing as the other ones, where it doesn't really have any uniques that you really want to go for. It's mostly rares.
I'll make sure to link Mathil's build guide for that in the description on YouTube then, when I put this up on YouTube. So good stuff. I don't have any footage for that currently, but yes, just another one to throw out there. I would say probably, though, when we talk about League starters, they're usually always pretty beginner-friendly as well, most League starters. But I wouldn't say Blade Vortex is one that I would include amongst the beginner-friendly League starters. I feel like it's not super nice to play for a new player.
Maybe not against the new bosses. Yeah, you're probably right. Kitava and stuff might be slightly sketchy. It does have very high damage, and the good thing about Blade Vortex is that you get to like pre-charge. So say you're about to run into Kitava, you can like spin up your lawnmower or Yu-Gi-Oh blade, whatever, and then run in, and you'll do a lot of damage. Yeah. So it is very nice for that. Same thing with like Firestorm, where you can like charge it up a bit. Blade Vortex is more so than other builds, though, once you get the duration and stuff.
If you want that charge up juiciness for boss killing, you can't really go past stacking 11 Cascade Mines down on the ground, though. Whoa! Harkening back to an earlier build talked about. So that's the kind of like the starter builds we've listed out. There are undoubtedly other starter builds being thrown around. I wanted now to talk about some like kind of general build meta and just like other notable mentions of things that we think stand out build-wise. And actually kind of like, I guess, the best to follow on with from the starter builds we've been talking about is Essence Drain and Caustic Arrow, because these can also be used as starter builds. But both of these were buffed a lot, huh? Did you see the patch notes for Essence Drain and Caustic Arrow?
Yeah, but they'd also been nerfed, so I feel like that was more to compensate. I don't feel like they're going to be significantly weaker or stronger. I feel like they're going to be at a pretty similar power level to what we have now. Because like you did have Decay nerfed.
Yeah, Decay was nerfed, though. We got additional support gems as well, which buffed it up. Then we got the actual buff to the skill, and then there's a cast speed buff to Contagion, and a damage buff to Contagion for some reason.
And the area scaling on both. So that's very nice, and the base damage is great. So I'm hoping Caustic Arrow makes a reappearance, because that's always like been a favorite of mine. It was like my second build I was streaming on. And it's really, really fun to play, even though it like doesn't shatter. I think the only thing that could make Caustic Arrow better would be if it literally melted the enemies. Then it would be the best skill in the game, like Fallout style. But yeah,
like Plasma.
Especially strong with like Trickster now.
Caustic Arrow is from level 20 is up to 765, up from 550. Yeah, and the new Trickster. So the Trickster change, for you guys who are not familiar, I can probably open this up here. This is the big one that everyone's talking about for Trickster, is this Swift Killer change, which I don't know if you can read that, but it's +1 maximum frenzy and power charges, and increased damage over time per frenzy, and increased damage over time per power charge. And they reverted the frenzy charge change they were talking about in the beta, so frenzy charge still scales your damage with its ball multiplier as well, so... Woo! And you get it generates frenzy power charges too for you, just in case you're wondering. So it's pretty good. It is pretty nice. So we got you got the buffed up Caustic Arrow and Essence Drain with like new support gems like Efficacy for Essence Drain, for example, being a spell. That gives duration, more damage, and another more damage just for funsies. So you got some good options there. And although you did mention the weapon decay craft has been nerfed, there is a decay support gem you can use to help potentially with boss killing. So
Yeah, and you do still have decay. It's just like the essence. It's not as powerful though, and it doesn't double dip anymore.
Well, yeah, to kind of, I guess, clarify, I haven't numbered it out in Path of Building, but I do feel like Essence Stone is going to be stronger than in 2.6 with all the changes kind of tallied up. So
I hope so, but
I mean, it was still pretty good, right? Like it was.
Well, it was already strong in 2.6, so
yeah, exactly. So even if it's just the same, it's still going to be a great starter and also
yeah,
just a generally pretty solid build.
it'd be the only thing that can kill Uberts there on hardcore.
Pop that Essence Drain and run around. Gotcha.
Pretty much.
So a big theme I've been noticing is that this expansion or this patch seems to be like the League of Elemental Conversion. We're getting that just seems to be like now the best way to scale. Whether you're talking like Doomfletcher's Prison or converting, or like the new Cascade, or converting your Blade Vortexes into Elemental,
Frost
or just
Blades,
like
Ice Shot,
Frost Blades, yeah. These guys are all looking like very strong, and a lot of the stuff around them has been buffed as well. And then we've got new like changes to Ice Blight and Innovate and things like that, which add elemental damage as well if you're going other elemental styles. Yeah, like I feel like we're gonna be seeing a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah, no, Elemental would definitely be the #1 most used thing, I would say. I mean, the thing is that a lot of things have been changed, so someone could come up with something that has like crazy DPS that isn't elemental, I guess. But I'm thinking the most played thing will be elemental for the entire league.
Yeah, it seems like it. Like, I feel like we're gonna see some more changes to the element system, but it's probably not going to be until 3.1. I know GGG likes to not change things too much mid-league, so I don't like to screw with this.
They do buff things sometimes.
Yeah, I guess it's more they generally don't nerf. Yeah, so maybe we'll see dot buffs over the bleed, poison, ignite buffs over the course of the league, but
yeah,
probably not bleed, but maybe.
From what I understand, they don't want to destroy builds unless it's something that's actually like broken game mechanic wise.
Either way, we're going to be seeing a lot of elemental setups. It just seems to be the way to like achieve the highest damage now, and there's not really been any nerfs to any of that, and a lot of the new tools just help support that. So, while they were really focused on nerfing a few specific things and changing the ailment system, a lot of this other stuff kind of was just left exactly the same. Yes, a few specific things is.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Yeah, I mean, the speed meta definitely has been like changed slightly, but you still have things like EK, which seems pretty playable. I saw someone made a guide as well that I was like looking while getting up in the morning, and I mean, it looked pretty decent. That's the fastest EK I've seen so far. I tried it a little bit myself, but super gimpy gear and couldn't shatter, so it wasn't great when I tried it on low gear. We should still be able to have some pretty fast builds. And like Frostbolt Mines and Frostbolt Totems are also pretty fast on clear speed. It just struggles on bosses.
Yeah, Frostbolt Mines was another one I wanted to mention as like an alternative to Cascade Mines.
Yeah.
Definitely up there. One you might not have thought of though is Magma Orb Mines. Apparently pretty legit. I know, I was skeptical too.
Is Fire Charge then or what?
No, I don't think so. Like you get so much AoE scaling and then you get so
I'm not convinced on that one.
I was not either, but I've been convinced though. Apparently pretty decent, so I don't know, maybe worth looking at, but as an alternative. There was I wish I could remember there was another streamer who was playing that and it looked very good. But I was pretty skeptical too though, trust me. I was pretty skeptical.
I know Wind loves pretty good. I think the #1 or one of the like super high racing builds this league will be Kinetic Blast. Either KB Totems, if you are, especially on hardcore, obviously Reflect can be an issue, or KB Mines, but also like Self-Cast will be pretty decent still in softcore where you don't have to worry. as
Yeah,
much.
people were freaking out about the patch note that mentions Kinetic Blast, but that was only to stop brokenness. It was clarified by the devs. It was only really to stop brokenness on particularly large bosses, which may have already been spoiled somewhere in the podcast.
Yeah, I noticed something hilarious, slight spoiler alert, which was on our Kali. When she's in the left corner and I cast Firestorm, it targets her entire body and she just got one shot. It was great. I was like, wait, what?
So it's to stop stuff like that. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here's proof about the Magma Orb. Chat informed me the streamer I was thinking of was Wins, so shout out to Wins.
Yeah.
So we'll have a look at some of this Magma Orb mine juiciness just here. Hold on.
Bay, it's Sarah Shards.
It does look like Syrup Shards, yeah. But the AoE scaling from mines just, I reckon, just creates like some creates some juiciness. He's looking a little squishy here, but that damage and clear looks pretty insane though. Like his mirror cursor. Yeah, that looks really satisfying. It kind of gives you seizures a little bit, the flashing that Magma Orb has. But at least it's not like as constant as like totem setups that I've seen in the past.
See, I really just want like a better movement ability or a slight buff to Lightning Warp. And then I want to use staffs. Like, there's so many staffs I want to use. I was playing around with Tarn's Shiver and Path of Building, and it's actually really cool. That's like a cheap alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I feel like a lot of those kind of Tarn's Shiver, Pledge of Hands with the buff to Mind Over Matter, and the even the Vinctar staves. What are they guys? Those guys called? There's like the penetration one. The penetration Agnorod as well. I'm seeing a bit more love for those recently as well. So they,
yeah, it's generally really important to penetrate.
Sis, please.
Oh, sorry. I mean, like resist-wise.
Yeah, to penetrate elemental resistances. It's definitely important, and it feels good too. Oh, that looked really satisfying killing the Val actually.
That didn't get any better.
So this looks pretty satisfying. So you're just kind of like changing the topic a little bit. The Magma Orb action looks pretty fun. So
actually,
shout out to
surprisingly good single target. So yeah, does it overlap?
It seems like there's a crap load of overlap. Yeah, I'll make sure to link that as well. But I'll link that for you guys in chat. Shout out to Wins for the for showing the power of Magma Orb. All right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Better than I would have expected.
Now I'm a believer.
We have new skills as well, Ziggy. So we have a Dark Pact, Stormburst, and Charge Dash.
Let's talk
about which one are you the most excited for?
Okay, so design-wise, I think Charge Dash is like there's so much going on with that in terms of scaling that. So I guess let's start with that one then. I was gonna go with that. It's fine. That's fine. I'll just type in.
We can do whatever you want, Ziggy.
Looks, it's fine. I'm just managing this live on the fly. Okay, it's fine. So Charge Dash is a movement skill which you channel and then release, and you teleport to the location. The movement speed of the little avatar that you send out is based on your movement speed, and the amount of explosions is based on your attack speed, and it's an attack with lightning conversion. So that's the basics. And there seems to be a lot of like interesting scaling going on with this based on as your move speed decreases and your attack speed increases, you know, you get a lot more bursts that overlap, but you also have a lot of potential breakpoint situations happening where like if you have X amount of move speed, then you want X amount of attack speed and so on and so forth. So there's been people trying to break down the calculations for that, and there's people like making AoE graphs and things like that. This is the most kind of like deepest theory craft of a new skill that I've probably ever seen, actually. So
yeah, I wonder if you like, I don't know if you've seen the people running around with like demigods and stuff, but they also slow down their movement speed. I wonder if that'll affect it to do like crazy single target.
Yeah, like there's a few things to consider with the move speed thing. Is that fast move speed gets you to the end quicker, which is so like the maximum range, which gives you a damage buff, and like the explosions at the end deal more damage and have more AoE. Though that said, the optimal damage point is probably somewhere in the middle where there's the overlap of multiple AoEs. So there's kind of a lot to consider here. So when clearing, you probably want to use something like a double fast Quicksilver, you know, like Adrenaline Chemist Quicksilver, to just maximize that kind of like quickly through packs. And then for bosses, have pretty low base move speed. So maybe we might even see setups where people don't really have move speed on their boots, but they just use like a super fast Quicksilver, and maybe have like Flask Effect or something. I don't know if they're playing a Pathfinder
Yeah,
or
I
something
mean,
like that.
this is something that I will be testing as soon as I hit level 28. I'm very, very interested in the skill. And I also want to test something like Charge Dash, Cast when channeling EK with the EK Threshold Jewel, or Spark with the Spark Threshold Jewel. So I'm very keen on seeing how this goes, because I haven't really decided what I'm starting with, but I'm most likely going Inquisitor, Firestorm, or Blade Vortex as my starter. And then this is not going to be it's not going to be a big change for me, because I can scale it fully elemental. So
Yeah.
it looks very cool.
And it's pretty easy, even if this skill ends up being a little awkward on bosses, to just like sub in Blade Flurry too. Like that's...
Yeah, or Ancestral Warchief, or both.
I know Cute Dog was also planning on making the new Valspark with this as well. I know you're skeptical, Ziz, but doing Cast One Channel Valspark with this, moving around with it and channeling the sparks out. And I know his numbers looked good on paper though. He was getting a lot of sparks out.
I think it might be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes as well.
I'm warm enough to the idea, so I'll be testing similar stuff to that as well. I like EK more probably, but
it's the reduced duration on the Spark Threshold Jewel that's kind of killing your buzz, isn't it?
yeah, I just feel like it's really unfair. I feel like my Spark is getting bullied. It's the only Threshold Jewel with negative stuff on it.
It is.
Why bully?
That clear speed. Don't forget, Val Fireball also got killed too. So you can, I guess.
Yeah, but the Fireball Jewel doesn't have anything negative on it.
No, that's true. But yeah, I feel like regular Spark has been bullied quite a bit, because I remember I played Spark at its like peak somewhat recently, when it was like a year or two ago now, I guess, but when it was like at its maximum, kind of where you could scale duration and projectile speed like crazy. I was doing Spark Psi on Voltaxic Rift when that was full conversion and everything, and oh my god, it was so good. And then it just got like nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed.
Like lightning arrows and lightning related things in general are like generally getting quite nerfed, because like look at lightning arrow with Voltaxic getting nerfed, and then well, Vinctar didn't really get nerfed, but
like this is not really kind of, I guess, the topic of this podcast, but I would like to see the conversion to chaos unnerfed on things like Voltaxic.
Especially now, yeah.
Yeah, and especially now that they've changed all sources of poison down to 60% instead of 100%. Like, if something just gave you poison before, now it gives you 60% chance to poison. So, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Voltaxic unnerf would be glorious. I don't know, it's just so disappointing, because I love that weapon, but...
Yeah. It's very, very cool. I think that's a supporter. It's made by a person, too, I think.
I can't remember. It's been in the game forever. It's like, it's been one of the, like...
I'm pretty...
the theory crafting and the numbers and the math, it does my head in a little bit. But yeah, no, it is. Maybe not as my first character though. I think in one of the other skills my first character, but it is...
Stream just died.
Stream just died. Everything's fine on my end. Just refresh, guys. Just refresh. That's weird. Everything's fine on my end.
We mentioned Spark. We got hit by GGG.
We got nerfed. The podcast got nerfed. We're back. We're okay. All right, we're really good. We're good now. People are refreshing. What was I talking about again, Ziz?
Charge Dash.
Charge Dash.
And notice your first ability.
Yeah, just yeah, probably not as my first character, but it does seem like the most interesting of the skills in terms of the mechanics, especially with like the math that I've seen people trying to work out for the attack speed versus the move speed. You know, on one hand you want your move speed to be slower, on the other hand potentially faster for clearing, and then, you know, how do you manage that? You'll have to have very careful use of your Quicksilver, you know, not using Quicksilver on bosses and stuff. It's a very interesting skill. So
see, even though I'm usually all about the speed and things and kill things while moving, I'm pretty much equally excited by Dark Pact and Stormburst. Like, when Dark Pact came out, like, I was watching it, I was talking to Havoc on Discord, and we were like, wow, that's actually a really cool ability. Like, the fact that you, like, sacrifice some of your life, sort of, and for its base, yeah. It's a really cool ability, and you can use it with, like, yourself or minions. I think it's really cool.
So the way Dark Pact works is you cast a spell that, if there's a skeleton nearby, targets the skeleton, sacrificing 6% of their life, dealing a flat amount of chaos damage to enemies, and then adding chaos damage based on the 6% life sacrificed. So if you scale up your skeleton's life, it'll deal more damage, and so on. It also chains between skeletons multiple times too, and you can link it to chain to make it chain even more. But the other thing is that if there's no skeletons in range, it'll just sacrifice your life instead, creating a big AoE, getting a big more multiplier, and dealing, and this part people were really confused on for ages, but it has been confirmed that it also adds chaos damage based on this amount of life you have that you've sacrificed. So, do you think people are going to play with this with skeletons, or do you think most of the people are just going to self-cast this?
I mean, I think that'll be a healthy mix. I think the meta will be more self-casting it, something like with Berserker getting Leech and things like that.
Yeah.
Is it confirmed if we can or can't use it with Totems yet? I'm
sure
guessing that's why Totem Life got nerfed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can use it with Totems. Should just be like Righteous Fire. They damage themselves, sacrifice their own life, and yeah, you're probably right that is part of the Totem Life nerf. So I can see Totems doing a bit of damage with it still, even with the nerf life, but yeah, not as good as self-cast or maybe as Skeleton.
Yeah, I think self-cast will be the meta, especially if you can get enough Leech.
You probably can't trap or mine it though, since traps and mines have no life.
You probably can. It probably just won't do any damage.
Yeah, 0 damage Dark Packs. Oh, I guess.
Or maybe it'll work with zombies.
It might,
so you have
it might do its base damage. I don't know.
Well, maybe it'll work. So you have like skeletons out, and you trap it, and then it'll target your skeletons.
What's the point?
And get a damage bonus from traps.
I guess.
Just saying it might work.
I don't know, Ziz.
I wasn't saying it was good.
But it seems like you could potentially do things like throw down boss summon skeletons on bosses. But yeah, it seems to me like, at least at the start of League, people that are playing this are going to be doing it self-cast and either stacking a lot of regen, either way stacking a lot of life. Like, this is a life stacking build. You stack as much life as possible, and then that scales your damage and your survivability. And then either stacking a lot of regen to counteract the damage you take. That's going to be difficult. You're going to need a lot of regen, but possible. Or going like Berserker Leech, like you said, or just a lot of other Leech. Adziri's Promise, even, and like Ward's Mark could well cover it as well, instead of Berserker if you wanted to do something else. But yeah, like, this is probably the one I'm leaning towards starting as, because you know that whenever a build scales its damage based on the same thing that scales life, it's going to be decent. Like,
yeah, no, I think it is very solid.
Yeah.
The thing for me is I really need something that scales well into clear speed endgame, because I want to hit first level 100 again. Yeah. And then I don't feel like it looks like a super high clear speed build. I feel like it looks more similar to something like Warchief.
Okay, it's hard to tell from like the videos that GGG does, like they look slow as, but there's this one part in the video here where he runs in and just kind of like, it looks like Discharge. I don't know, Discharge clear speed is pretty good, only really limited by your move speed. You just run into the back and one-shot them. I think we could see the same thing here. If you've got like, I don't know how much life this character has, but if you got your like 9k life that you've been just hammering on, or you know, even more reserve 7k life or something like that, the damage numbers on this look pretty obscene, and you basically just run in and create an AoE explosion around your character that looks like it potentially hits half the screen, and we don't know how much AoE scaling they have in here, but it seems like there's potential there just to like run in and blow up everything on the screen.
Saying I need to design like a cost breeze, but for chaos spells.
Hey, there you go. Now you're thinking. So yeah, I think the skelly, like casting skellies on each pack and using Dark Pact is not really, gonna happen that much unless you just kind of enjoy a more leisurely playstyle, right? A leisurely pace.
Yeah.
But in terms of if people want to like, do it pretty efficiently, then we're gonna see self-casting for clear, and then maybe using some minions for bosses. That said, like you could probably do some minion damage, minion life focused ones, and then you use things like the Necromancers. They leave poison clouds when they die, though it takes like 11 casts or something to.
As far as I know, Mark posted as well, saying a quick update on issues with this post is that the balancing isn't 100% there yet, so they might actually like delay this. This might not be there on launch if they haven't finished balancing it.
Oh god, don't tell me that.
Well, I think it's better to tell you than not, and that was posted 20 hours ago by Mark. So
I
like
was
it
thinking of
might be
doing
if
this.
they're finished with it, but
I hope so. I hope so. All right.
yeah, it says I can't give an ETA on the balance changes being finalized, but we'll try to get them up once they're here.
Ugh, okay. Yeah, there was some last minute issues they discovered with it. They were talking about yesterday, so hopefully they do get that sorted for launch. Otherwise, I assume it will be like within a week of launch, if there are still issues. But the other skill then is Stormburst, which I don't know. The mechanics of it seem pretty decent, but the numbers that were released just recently seem like they might not be that strong. What do you think, Ziz?
That I think it looks more like Scorching Ray did when it first came out for me. So it doesn't feel like it has like a speed potential because of channeling skills aren't like the best speed wise. And yeah, as you said, like the numbers aren't really there for like crazy damage either. So I think Stormburst could be. I mean, obviously, there's so many combinations that we could have missed a lot of things from what people have theory crafted so far. But I could see that being buffed later on.
Yeah, it's got so the way this works is you channel a stream of projectiles which deal very small damage, and then you release the channel which creates an explosion which does large more multiplier. I think it's like 250% more damage. For the actual explosions. And in this video, they really pushed the cast when channel aspect of it, which, I don't know. I could see like that helping with sustain for leech and stuff, but it doesn't seem like an optimal skill to be doing cast when channel setups. But then the damage numbers make it seem like maybe you will kind of want to do something like that. And the added damage bonus is 10%. And like all this stuff's kind of combining. I'm like, ooh, I'm a little unsure about this one. That's why I was going to start with Dark Pact. But that said, though, it also functions like Barrage. And Barrage, if it was being released, when it was being released, you kind of look at it and you're like, this doesn't look very impressive. Like, even numbers-wise, this doesn't look very impressive. But then you start to like, okay, well, adding more projectiles becomes a massive damage multiplier, and maybe we end up seeing the same thing here. Like, I think there is possibility there.
Yeah, something that's really cool is that it's both an AoE and projectile, so it gets a massive increase by Dying Sun. And I don't know if enchantments have been revealed yet. So
no enchants for any of the skills. That's a good point. We don't know what sort of enchants. If this gets
so maybe it's like a barrage thing, right? And then,
that'd be crazy.
I don't know. Like you see it being shown up here with Sire Charge, which could be pretty exciting with like a crazy amount of projectiles.
That does look kind of fun, but yeah, just like I think it has the boss killing potential. It's just so hard to judge how this is going to feel to play as well against bossing. But you can slow down the projectile speed and increase the AoE and guarantee a lot of overlapping explosions. But
yeah, I can see it being used with solar projectiles for boss killing, so you get like a bunch of them. Especially like it might be really good for things like Kitava or Arkali where they do have, or like things like that with like larger frames.
Gigantic hitbox bosses, yeah.
Yeah.
That
There's something I would like more of too, like like Shaper kind of fights, but like Kitava.
I really hope we get to see some of those guys in maps. That's not coming at release, the new bosses in maps, but I don't know, hopefully by like 3.1 I'd love to see some Atlas of Worlds maps including the new bosses, because those would be super fun. And then, like you said, builds that take advantage of large boss hitboxes would be a little more popular as well, so it'd be pretty cool. So yeah, like, how do you think people will play this mostly? I feel like we're going to see just kind of like, a lot of Inquisitor action, that sort of deal. Like,
yeah, Inquisitor is what I generally think Inquisitor is so strong in this patch because we're mostly doing LE scaling and ignoring the pen completely, like not needing a Wise Oak, which could be expensive, and not needing to use a gem for LE pen. It's so strong. So I'm going to be running Inquisitor on so many builds this league.
Yeah.
I normally don't do that, I promise. Please don't nerf Inquisitor. Yeah, Inquisitor, and then I don't think people will be using the channeling that much on it. I think people will be more using its standalone cast.
Yeah. It's funny how much that was pushed in the video. I assume that's just because it looks good, having all the
It does
other
look
spells
amazing.
Yeah, that's
might be used on like Scion with the new Deadeye as well. Like Scion got a lot of cool changes.
Yeah, Scion in general.
Extra projectiles.
I'm seeing a lot more people talking about Scion. Yeah, being a bit more hyped. So we could see a bit of that. I do think League start will see Inquisitors, like you were saying.
I think it like I've sort of been making fun of Trickster Scion the past couple of days because the Trickster Scion ascendancy is, you know, it looks like a Pantheon power. It's not bad. But I also think like that's sort of a good solution to Scion, where you can rotate and like make, for example, half of the ascendancies good one league and then destroy them the next league and make the other half good. Because I feel like there's very, very hard with Scion to make them either good enough for niche cases, but not strong enough that you use them on everything. Like Scion has usually been like, it's either Path of Scion, where every third character is a Scion, or nobody plays it at all, which we had in 2.6.
You might be onto something, is they just remove all the other classes, and then just everyone plays Scion, and then they can just rotate the balance on Scion's ascendancies to get people playing different things. I mean, it's in the center of the tree, it's fine, you can play every build on it.
Exactly.
It'll be fine.
Okay. Not what I meant, but...
This is the kind of things that Ziz is trying to get to happen to the game, guys. Oh.
No, what?
Sorry. No. Just trolling. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about Dark Pack, Stormburst, or Charge Dash?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I'm very interested. Like, last thing on Charge Dash, I would be very interested to see how people will scale it with either Fizz Conversion or, you know, or a scaling like we've done on like Blade Flurry and Spectral Throw in the past. Or Hawa. Could be pretty cool.
So, on that note then, let's talk about some of the new support gems and changed support gems. I'm going to get some of this stuff up on the screen. First up is exciting. Arcane Surge is kind of a big one. What are your thoughts on Arcane Surge, man?
I like Arcane Surge in theory. I feel like the scaling is a bit insane, where
the mana cost.
I still want it to be reworked a little bit, because it's so scary at the moment that if you scale it down in the mana cost, then people are just going to use it on other skills, right? But if you like the way it is now, I've actually really been enjoying it on a couple of builds because of the mana regen, but the mana cost is a little bit high for a main skill too, where I'd rather use another support gem. So I feel like it can be tweaked a little bit, but it's definitely a good addition to the game, and I like the mechanic.
So the way this mana cost thing works, this was kind of changed several times through the beta, and this is the version we're going live with. It has a mana cost requirement that works the same as cast on damage taken. So if you if you have a level 21, it costs 200 mana to activate and to give you the Arcane Surge buff. And if you have like a skill that costs 50 mana, you have to cast it 4 times and then it will activate. So it actually does remember it, and you could like cast it twice, move on to the next pack, cast it another 2 times, and then get the buff. You can link it to increased duration, so if your skill you're linking to benefits from increased duration, linking this also to increased duration works pretty nicely. So, you know, sometimes I just chuck that in anyway, because you get like a 7-second Arcane Surge. Even if you only get it on every second cast, for example. So like your skill costs 25 and your Arcane Surge is 50, then you know, every second cast with 7-second duration ends up lasting just fine. So you can kind of play around with the mechanics of it to make sure that you have pretty good uptime on it when you need it. Or you can just keep it at like a low level and just have it activate every cast. So you might have like a level 3 Arcane Surge. And even that's still pretty good though. Like 10% more spell damage, 10% increased cast speed, and like 0.5-ish base mana regen, so which ends up being quite a lot usually, depending on your
the base mana regen even on low levels is very crazy, especially now with like obviously minor matter is going to be super meta this thing. So it'll be very interesting to see how people use it and if people are going to keep it low level or max it. I don't think that many people will max it, to be honest.
No, like I think most of the time you're going to see this somewhere between 1 and 10, most commonly 1 and 5, to be honest. I'm one of the builds on the beta, I was using it at about 10 on every second cast with increased duration. I think it just depends on whether you can use increased duration, really. You'll go to like 10-ish if you can use increased duration. Otherwise, yeah, because you don't really want to use this on your main skill, right? Although this works on your main skill, you want a different multiplier on there and then use this on some support skills, so then you're getting both.
Yeah, this is a gem I can see getting both buffed and nerfed, where like the higher end gets like stronger in some ways and the lower end gets nerfed, similar to the way we've seen like cast on damage taking Immortal Call or cast on damage taking Enduring Cry being changed in the past. So I can see it being changed.
That's a pretty good point, actually. I could see that happening too, because I could see GGG's kind of mindset on this being that they want it to be a strong temporary buff that's not up 100% of the time, whereas the way players are going to treat this is, I want this 100% of the time. So
Yeah. I can see on an Orbis Storm setup, just keeping this as a level 1 thing can be pretty much mandatory, and I feel like they've been like moving away from mandatory things, like, you know, with the reduced mana restoration gem like got nerfed and we were forced to use Enlighten. So they've been like moving away from mandatory things. So it just depends a lot on what the meta feels like and if people start using it on everything.
Yeah, in terms of setups, one of the setups I was using was an Orb of Storm setup. I basically replaced my In the Full Link increased crit strike chance with this, so you still get your Elemental Overload often enough without that gem. That was just kind of like a throwaway one you threw in there, or like in KOE or something. So you use this, Curse on hit, Curse, and Orb of Storms, and that can be a full link, for example. I also use it on Flame Dash on the Mine character, since that didn't really have a good movement skill otherwise. It's worth noting that you don't want to use it on Lightning Warp, unfortunately, though. Another nail in the coffin for Lightning Warp, because Rapid Decay and less duration do affect this, and you get 1 second Arcane Surges. Just not ideal. So that kind of sucks. Any other setups you could see using it? Unfortunately, you can't use it on things like War Cries or attacks. They changed it from those.
You can use it on Flame Dash.
Yeah, Flame Dash and Orb of Storms are the only two I've used it on. I can't really... You can use it on Detonate Mines. Oh, wait, no, because that doesn't have a mana cost. You used to be able to use it on Detonate Mines when it was a chance to proc, not anymore. Can you see anything else you would use this
I actually did end up using it on my Frostbolt, because I didn't have any way of leeching mana, and I wanted to try dropping my mana potion. So like until you get, for example, Leech on Boots, which solves any mana problem, then yeah, it was pretty great, and especially because boss fights were longer. So when I was doing self-cast Frostbolt, I did actually use it, but I did drop a lot of damage to use it. Contagion as well.
Contagion's an interesting one. Yeah, if you have a spare slot for that on it, then that ends up being pretty nice. Yeah, you mentioned using on your main skill. Like, honestly, a lot of these ones are great for leveling. Arcane Surge on your main skill for leveling, it's fine. A lot of these ones that you would endgame not want to use on your main skill, like Onslaught, for example, are still very good on your main skill early on. People are saying, like, Contagion, and like you said, I guess you could use it on things like Frostbomb, Self-Cast Curse if you're going that route.
Yeah.
So there's a few other things. Self-Cast Curses.
I've actually been doing that a little bit in day one practice things.
Every now and then, yeah. And, you know, for leveling it early on.
Yeah.
Another one was Immortal Call. Immortal Call increased duration, Arcane Surge. Did see someone using that recently, and I was like, that's actually not too bad. I know
Self-cast Immortal Call?
Yes, self-cast Immortal Call. I know. You can get a pretty decent duration on it. You just like face tank the boss, man. Take no damage. I know. It's from a different era. But now when you do it, you also get a damage buff, Ziz. So imagine if I could tell you could press a button, and for like 4 seconds you won't take any damage, and you'll have increased damage dealt. Would you press that button, Ziz? Would you press that button, Ziz?
But I can have it on casting damage taken Immortal. Change. I don't like change. No, that's fine.
Weird though. So that's an option. Depends on how you like to play, I guess. So
that's true. Everyone likes different stuff.
That is true. I think there's strength to be had there. Chance to bleed, and I guess to a lesser extent, chance to poison. Just kind of to briefly mention. Do you have any strong thoughts on those two?
I love that all the new support gems are really good. I think it's like so strong, especially for racing and stuff like that. I wish it wasn't with weapons, because it would be such an amazing change. And it's also melee only, right? Chance to bleed, I think.
No, it's just attacks. It works with any attacks.
Okay, so it works for Doomfletch Prison. That's pretty big.
The biggest thing is about the added flight physical, really, getting that.
Yeah, that's why it's like so good for Doomfletch Prison, but obviously you can't use it with face breakers because, or is it
attack support? It's with weapons. Yeah, sorry, it is. Attacks.
Yeah, so you can't use it with face breakers, which is what I was really sad about. So you can use it with Doomfletch, but not face breakers.
another thing kind of supporting that Doomfletch hype that's going to be happening this league, I think.
Oh yeah, Doomfletch is going to be huge. Like getting that prophecy will probably be an X or 5, maybe.
An X or 5.
I can't remember how rare it is, which is why I just threw out such a random number. But it'll be pretty expensive though.
Well, I think that's like a safe thing to do, though, is to throw out a pretty high range on that sort of thing. So these guys are great for leveling on any attack build too, especially chance to bleed, where you typically have a bit more fizz scaling going on, and it's easy to be kind of like, well, I don't really want to make a bleed build, but just the flat fizz damage and bleed, just treat bleed as like a tiny bit of extra damage while you're leveling. Like, ends up being pretty nice. So I could see this being used on like your Sunder builds for leveling, especially.
Yeah, MAME as well is very cool. I actually love interactions like the new MAME support, because it stops the, like, in so many builds, you just, if you can, you want to go one build, like one click, right? If you can have, like, say you're only using Cyclone and that's all you need to do, that's great. But like this sort of promotes not doing that, which is what I like, when there is a reason to use multiple skills, which is very cool.
Yeah, and I like that it also places extra pressure on your support gems that you're doing as well, your gem sockets. So you're like, ooh, you know, like with Arcane Surge, I was like, I guess I'll sacrifice that crit strikes. But, you know, there's more choices. Like, I could use AoE, I could use crit strikes, or I could use Arcane Surge. And MAME's kind of the same sort of deal, you know. Do I put this on in place of one of my move skills, or do I put this, you know, on my totem in place of it dealing less direct damage or something?
And you can, like, do something like, say you have... bleed on something, and then you can use Bloodlust on your main attack, and you also have main now, so you can use several things now to buff up your main attack to be like crazy.
Yeah, totally. It's worth mentioning that this is enemies take increased physical damage, which is a more multiplier, but it only applies to physical damage you deal, so not to things like poison, even though that's based on physical damage, and not to things like any elemental that's been scaled from physical damage. But that said, even if you're like playing a Fizz build and you're using like Hatred and Added Fire, still a good portion of your damage is Fizz, and it might be worth chucking this on a support skill still. So, not too bad. I do like this one as well as it is. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
The new PS support. I love this. I love this change. Oh my god. The new PS.
I initially hated it. Like, I had a very knee-jerk reaction to this when I was like, no!
No, I
liked Pierce the way it was. But then, like, when I was like looking at the numbers and thinking about it, I was like, but you know what? 7, like if I can get up to 7 or 11 pierce, do I normally pierce more than that anyway? No, you know what? This is actually a great change. I am so happy with the new pierce, because it makes it a lot more like accessible early game.
Yeah, like the moment I played with the new pierce support from level 1, so there's 2 things I did with this. I played a ranger and played Split Arrow, and you get the PS support gem on the beach now, so it's a level 1 gem, you get it before killing Hillock. I used Split Arrow with this, and I was like, oh my god, this is so nice. Unfortunately, Ranger bow leveling is still pretty janky feeling in general, but at least for those first, you know, 10, 20 levels with Split Arrow PS, I was like, oh, this is so good. I've never, you know, never had such good feeling bow leveling at these levels without uniques. So that was really nice. The other thing I did was played a Ranger, muled the PS support after killing Hillock into a chest, and then played a Templar or something with Spark, and that was pretty good too. Spark PS leveling, man. Woo! PS leveling.
Yeah, no, like, normally leveling with Pierce or Spark is annoying, because you have to wait till you get 100% Pierce. Now you don't anymore, so that's pretty big.
Apparently, someone in the chat saying that the top end of the PS numbers has been lowered a little bit, but either way, like, at a leveling...
Should be fine still, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we skipped over Onslaught.
Oh, yeah, we can go back to that. That's fine. I may not be doing this in order.
Well, that's alright. Onslaught actually changes, like, a little bit of the racing meta as well. Like, we were playing around with it earlier, and normally we do, like, faster casting, Firestorm, and either added lightning. Actually, that's been changed too. We should talk about that. But, control destruction. But, now we've been doing, like, control destruction or conk, and Onslaught. Like, getting Onslaught that early, like, level 1 now, it's pretty big.
That move speed buff,
especially for the people running for your group. Like, not so much when you're like the leveling group that stays behind, not so much, but especially for the runner, it's huge.
Yeah, definitely worth using. Like, it's easy to look at this and be like, I'd rather, you know, my DPS be a little higher, but as a leveling support gem, I can see this sticking in there quite a while. It's not something, I don't feel like you're ever going to use this at endgame though, right?
No, probably not.
Just a leveling gem.
You can use it on Herald of Ice for a free onslaught.
Link this to Herald. It's got 110 mana multiplier. It's not too bad.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Easy. It's like we did Ice Bite before.
Yeah.
You can have Ice Bite still as well. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you don't have like another easy way of getting your onslaught, you don't want to use a Silver Flask or something, then yeah, check that out on Herald of Ice or the crit build. Good idea.
Another unique flask. Let's go.
There you go. So Onslaught, definitely one to consider leveling with in many different setups if you can potentially chuck it in there instead of using like faster attacks or something like that. Because it basically gives you, at low levels, the same effect as faster attacks, but also gives you move speed, so pretty nice. The other ones, you mentioned added lightning and added cold, right? Like,
yeah, they've been increased. I think someone said they had done some path of building research earlier, and it seemed better than like control destruction and stuff like that early on, at least. So yeah, they'll be used a lot more now, not instantly replaced.
Yeah, so these were only ever really used for leveling, and then in just like some setups they were worth it. But like it's worth just mentioning these so people do test them now. Actually, like take the time to test this stuff. Like, oh, is this actually better than using control destruction or something? You know, that damage on these guys was pretty substantially increased. So not much else to say than that. They just had more damage out of lightning and out of cold were buffed basically. But on kind of like a similar note, there's Innovate and Ice Bite. So let's have a look at Innovate first. It's definitely this was one that gave you Onslaught before when you killed a shocked enemy. So Onslaught is new gem, so now this has a different buff. And Innovate gives you flat lightning damage, is a buff that gives you flat lightning damage. Also, the gem itself gives added flat lightning damage to this linked gem as well. So, and it ends up being like about the same amount as added lightning or something. Like it's pretty high amount of lightning damage.
It's pretty cool.
So this one, like, it gives you chance to shock. It gives you the innovate buff. Gives you flat lightning damage. Like, what do you think? Do you like just see using this? So, like, if you were playing like a Sparker or something, could you see using that?
Well, the thing is, like, bosses are a little more, like, tougher now, so you'd have to at least swap it out for bosses, because you're not going to have it for that.
That's true.
As long as I have another gem, I'd probably be using that instead.
Yeah, so you think, like, you couldn't see using this over just added lightning, for example? If you were going to use something, that gives a similar effect. That's kind of my issue with Innovate a little bit, is that I could see it being used a bit, but yeah, I guess if the shock chances ends up being important to you, so if you're playing a non-crit build, that
you can put this on Herald of Ice too, can't you? Yeah.
I mean, Herald of Thunder would probably be a better choice, but
you won't really slay with that though. Like you can still have a like I'll work with Herald of Ice.
Oh yeah, well it gives added lightning damage, and it is easier to shock enemies now, so that's a good point.
Yeah,
it's got 100.
I'll probably use it on that.
Though. 130 multiplier though, so it ends up getting a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, it's not too bad though. It's a pretty big boost.
Oh, Herald of Thunder can't shock. Chat is reminding me, so you wouldn't use it on that anyway. There you go. Herald of Ice, winner again. Okay.
Always is. And it's so beautiful. Like, I really want the purple thing. I've opened so many boxes.
Purple Herald. What is it, purple?
Yeah,
okay.
Purple Herald. I've never got it.
The other one that's similar is Ice Bite has also been changed. So this one gives you frenzy charges on killing a frozen enemy. Oh, it's a chance to gain anyway. Also a chance to freeze, but now it also gives added cold damage linked to the gem it's linked to, and then added cold damage for the supported skill per frenzy charge that you have. So if you're stacking your frenzies up, you can potentially get a lot of damage. I see this being used in, for example, like Frostblade's Raiders and things like that. Like, I think this one looks pretty good.
The more and more I see all these new things, I'm thinking like that auto bomber with Aberrats, like we don't want to go crit anymore, and there were a few that didn't before. I feel like that's been buffed. Like you only went like 30, 40% crit, I can't remember. But yeah, Abras could be pretty cool with all these like new flat addeds coming from other places.
The quality is interesting too. Increased damage with hits against frozen enemies. I just feel like that's a more interesting quality than they usually put on gems, instead of just being like, well, here's 0.5% ice damage. It's a little slightly more interesting. The Auto Bomber one is interesting because they also just released a spoiler of a new unique chest. It looks like it's made for Herald Auto Bombers too. So these are builds that use Heralds to just create like a self-replicating cycle where the Heralds kill enemies that proc the Heralds, which kill enemies which proc the Heralds, and they just kind of walk through maps killing stuff.
Yeah, and something that's so nice about 3.0 is how big all our area of effects are as well.
Alright.
Rip AoE. Rip AoE.
Rip AoE. Although, I guess worth mentioning that, on that note, since you bring that up, that Curse and Aura Radius has been improved, which means that Blasphemy got a lot better. You can actually get, like, old school looking Blasphemy Radius, which is kind of cool. So, just worth throwing out there. Was there any other new support gems you wanted to mention? Like, there are other ones, but I feel like those are some of the main ones I wanted to just, like, point out to people.
Yeah, I think they're the main ones.
Yeah, okay. But it's worth checking out the new support gems. There's like 13 new ones, and old ones have been changed, so, you know, it's just worth kind of remembering those guys. I did want us to take a second to talk about Bandit rewards, just to remind people that Bandit rewards have changed, and I guess also get your thoughts on the Bandit rewards too. So, there's now only one Bandit encounter. You only get the one choice, and each Bandit gives you like 3 stats, or you can kill them all and get 2 passive points. And the stats that they give you, it's debatable whether some of them are worth 2 passive points or not. So 2 passives is a fairly popular choice, but at least one of them, I think, is well worth 2 passive points, depending on your build. But we'll have a look. So Oak firstly grants 1% life regen, 2% additional physical damage reduction, so like a endurance chargey sort of thing, and 20% increased physical damage. Would you take that or 2 passive skill points? If you would take that, what build would you take that in?
I would only take that for life regen builds. I would never take that for a melee build like Cyclone Thunder. Never, ever, for any reason. I would always
100%.
take Krypton. Yeah, so I feel like you're only going to take this on like maybe Righteous Fire builds if you want to go life regen early. I feel like Oak needs a buff. I don't know about you, but all the other ones, all the other 3 options, I feel like they like have a larger amount of like circles of builds they cover, whereas Oak I feel like is this like tiny circle.
Well, it seems like the idea for it is to be like, you're going to play some sort of tanky melee character. Here's tanky stuff and physical damage for you, but yeah, it doesn't really end up being worth 2 passives on those very much. But here's the thing, I'm not even taking Oak on some of my Righteous Fire builds, man.
Then I wouldn't take it for anything. Like, I don't play Righteous Fire, and that's the only thing I could have seen myself taking it for.
You just have so much regen available now, and also the new Pantheon powers. There's 2 Pantheon powers that mitigate Righteous Fire damage, so you don't really need that life regen. Often there's other things to take, so yeah. And like 2 passives for 1% regen and 2% fizz mitigation is like, okay, really, like in theory it's okay, like, but you have to weigh up what you're gonna get those passives for, and I've always found more useful things. Yeah. Alira is one of the more attractive ones, though, with 5 flat mana regen, 20% crit multi, and 15 all elemental resistances. When do you take this?
So, if you're ever using... Oh yeah, Voice of the Storm got nerfed into the ground. I would have always taken this on Voice of the Storm or Acquire the Storm builds, which you still probably will, because it'll be easier for you to gear. And the 15 all res is definitely like, it frees up more points other places for you to actually get damage. The 5 mana regen per second is really nice early game as well. And obviously 20 crit multi is pretty great. I would still say this is only the second best bandit choice.
Over passive skills?
No, I would say Kraden is god tier.
You like
far
Kraden
the best bandit reward.
Alright, we'll get into that in a second then. So, yeah, Alira's flat mana regen is pretty huge, and this one ends up being worth considering on builds that where your mana regen is going to be kind of fine, and 5% mana regen ends up being a lot, so that can potentially cover your issues in some cases. And I think people tend to underrate all resists, but 45 resistances from the bandit choice is
it's really strong.
It's like makes gearing a crap load easier, especially in a new league.
Very, very nice day one.
Yeah, if you're gonna play like a character that's designed just to be your like getting started in the league and making some money, then basically having like one item's less worth of resistances that you need to get potentially, early game, then that can be pretty huge. So yeah, I always like every time I take that, I'm always surprised. Like, wow, I'm already capped resists. Like, not even at endgame yet. What's going on? So that always feels pretty good.
And speaking of endgame, like Kraton has everything you need endgame. Like all you want, like you want to get like your critical mass for DPS for your one-shotting things, and then you just want to stack attack, cast speed, or movement speed. And like we're still at the stage where shield charge is affected by both movement speed and attack speed. So this is like sort of like, I don't want to call it double dipping, but like attack and movement speed. It's so good. And then even if you're a spell build, then you're like getting attack, cast speed, and movement speed, because every single build that like people are playing for, like for example the level 100 push is going to need attack speed and movement speed. So whether you're a caster, then you're also going to need cast speed. Now the 3% dodge doesn't really do anything, but yeah.
So I see your point, right? I think that Kraton's like, it's clear speed, right? So I can see why wanting to take that when you're pushing at 100 and stuff. So from your perspective, I can agree with that. But I think for like most people, and I don't know, I'm even kind of skeptical even for you if it's worth it. I do disagree on Kraton being very good. I feel like that's never worth 2 passives. But just like for example, Quick Step is often 2 points in a lot of builds, and that's 9% attack speed and 6% move speed. So that's like a little faster than that. Obviously, you lose out on the 2% dodge, but
yeah,
so just for like kind of comparison there.
Well, I mean, a lot of people pick up precision, right? Precision is 3% increased attack speed and cast speed, and 3% movement speed with a 3% attack and cast speed. Like that's taken in, I'd say the majority of like the endgame builds, and 2.6 have that. I know I did in a lot of mine. So yeah, it's definitely worth 2 points.
Let me bring up precision for people here.
It's on the left by the Inquisitor start.
Oh, right, the Templar nodes.
Yeah, like so many people were taking that, and obviously not for the accuracy because it was like Valspark and stuff. So yeah, I would say Kraton for everyone pushing ladder and going fast is going to be the main one.
The dexterity was kind of like the extra tipping point in those nodes, I feel, though.
Didn't really use those, or didn't really need those on a lot.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, I can certainly see cases where Kraton ends up being just a little better because like you don't have access to that move speed. So if you can't get that and you want that, then that's worth sacrificing 2 passives for. So that's kind of the point there. So it's good to know that there are cases in which you would take that. I feel like a lot of builds, you're going to be able to find 2 passives. But that's ultimately what it comes down to for all of these guys is just like plan your passive tree, look at your passive tree, and think, all right, if I had 2 extra passives, plan for like 111 points or whatever we want to do. And then if you're like, all right, if I had 2 extra points, where would I put those now?
Yeah. And you gotta remember, like, for a lot of us, the main endgame is, like, just getting enough damage, and then, like, we're not using a damage weapon. We're using Brightbeak, right? Because it's faster. And then it's only because, and it's so strong because Shield Charge gets scaled off both movement speed and attack speed, which Whirling Blades doesn't. And Whirling Blades is great if you have a build that's, like, you can't, like, say you don't manage to get movement speed boots, like, you're poor, and you don't have a room for a Quicksilver, then Whirling Blades is great. But obviously you want to get Shield Charge and be able to use that.
Cool. All right. Worth considering, guys. Do keep those new bandit rewards in mind.
But definitely want Oak to be buffed.
Yeah.
On a final note.
I would agree. Like I can see your situations in which taking Kraton is going to be useful. Illyria is useful in a diverse range of situations. I feel like that's kind of the best design. That's my favorite one of the 3. And then Oriath is just like, you barely even take it on some righteous fire builds. So I'm like, when do you use this? Like, the only time you're going to use that is like if you just don't have access to that regen and you really need it. Like the fizz, you always have access to fizz damage, so it's like whatever.
Yeah. I feel like attack speed just scales better. So.
What What about that, like, the loss of, like, the other bandit rewards? Do you think that's important to consider at all? I feel like, at this
I
point.
think we'll get something in Act 9 or 10.
I'm not talking, like, the power charge, frenzy charge, endurance charge ones. Like, I don't know yet whether we're going to get those. They haven't said anything. I don't know.
Surprise? I don't
The
know.
patch notes. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out.
We'll find out about that one.
But what were you asking about
just,
then?
Just like the other ones, you know, like Bandit Life and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, so I feel like they should give like a slight buff again to life. I feel like life does need another tiny buff, but I also don't want it to be in the form of something like that because Oak was basically mandatory. If you were a life build, you were picking Oak in normal. And I'm not a big fan of like I prefer now where it's like, okay, well I'm going a crit build, so I'm gonna go for the crit multiplier, or I'm gonna go like you have some choices now. And even for some crit builds you'll be going attack and cast speed. So I like the choices more now. Just Oak needs to be brought more in line.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I wouldn't want to see flat life added to Oak. Because I like the idea that if I'm playing a life build, any one of these could be useful, potentially. Maybe Oak needs to be a bit stronger, but, you know, I could take any of those. So I would hate to see, like, flat life added. But, I mean, we do get life buffs in other ways. There's new prefixes to keep an eye out for if you don't know about it, guys. But there's, like, hybrid evasion life, and it's, like, a bit of extra life that gets added onto gear. So you'll see a lot more over 100 chest pieces and so on floating around, which is good. The chill and shock changes. These, I think, are actually kind of a big deal. Shock especially, it's much more worth it to consider using something like Fizz to Lightning or adding in a bit of lightning damage because it's much easier to get a shock now.
It's basically a buff to the added lightning gem too.
Yeah. So if you have like some crit or some chance to shock or something like that, then it's now potentially a lot easier. So the way it works now is it's a set duration of 2 seconds, and it scales from 1 to 50%, increased damage taken by the monster when they're shocked. So it's not just always 50% now. And that's based on whether you deal between 0 and 10% of a monster's life. So if you deal 10% of their life in one hit, and you get a shock, then that's 50% debuff applied to them. So in order to get 1% shock, that's a 0.2% of damage you need to do to a boss. That's very doable, right? Like, you can do a lot more than that in a single hit, based on the lightning damage. So, like, pure lightning builds, this is definitely, I think, a buff for them. But also just, like, I'm playing my Glacial Cascade, and I'm like, well, I'm looking at Path of Building. Added Fire is a little more damage than Fizz to Lightning, but Fizz to Lightning is going to get me those shocks. I have a crit chance. That's a fair amount of lightning damage.
Like, I'm pretty bad with, like, the math side of things, but isn't this... It's sort of, like, more rewarding for, like, the bigger lightning hits, like, per hit, and not, like, the faster ones, like, Stormburst.
Yeah, it's... If you can get... Well, here's the thing, right? So, if you hit pretty fast with a lot of smaller hits, it stacks. So, shock stacking is kind of back, because what happens is if you get, like, you get, like, a few percent shock, then your damage is going to be increased on the next hit that they take. So then that's going to increase the shock and make it a little easier to get a larger shock potentially. So it kind of depends on like how much damage you're gaining from that, whether that ends up being significant enough to boost it kind of to the next threshold. But there is kind of the potential for that. But yeah, like a bigger hit, if you can deal 10% of their life, or if you have shock effectiveness, which is going to be a fair bit of that sprinkled around on the tree now especially, then if you get like 100% shock effectiveness, not too hard to do, then if you can deal 5% of their life, then you can get a full...
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So
I definitely like that. It makes like I honestly thought we were all going to be rocking Ellie Focus this league after seeing like what happened to Ignite and things like that, and I was expecting just a shock with Vinctar, which apparently it was 30% the entire time and not 50.
Yeah, it's funny, eh? We didn't even know. So
yeah, but that also makes the nerf a lot less significant. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Vinctar's been reduced from 50 to 10," and they were like, "No, actually, it's been reduced from 30 to 10."
Yeah, so not quite as bad as it seems. But yeah, good point about Ellie Focus. If you were using that before, because you know that damage was juicy. Now, like, consider whether, you know, that shock or that chill could be pretty useful for you. Especially the shock, you know, could end up being a pretty nice damage multiplier for you. So, worth considering for sure. It's not just kind of like a throwaway because you were never going to shock a boss anyway. So that is pretty nice to see. At the same time, immunities are going away too. So I think there might still be a
very exciting.
I think there's still some freeze immunity, but otherwise, shock and chill and poison and ignite and all those immunities are gone. Not that it matters so much for like poison and ignite, but
well, that actually might make Aquamarine potion more used. And for those of you who don't know what Aquamarine does, it actually drops chill ground. And it's a potion I had never used until Embu told me to use it for Shaper because Essence Drain really struggles with the trash. And I sort of laughed at him and I was like, oh no, actually that's an amazing idea. Thanks, Embu. So if you can, like, if you're struggling with a boss, like dropping Shell Ground, like it's pretty big. Arctic Armor as well.
Not to harsh your buzz, but all the sources of ground chill are like 10% now unless stated otherwise. 10% slow instead of 30%. So that kind of does... They are a bit weaker than what they were in 2.6. Yeah, it's a shame because I love Arctic Armor's chill.
Makes sense.
I love when you're like just able to stand on top of the boss and move a little bit just to keep them chilled. So that's going to be a bit weaker now. It was
kind of OP, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so some of the easy sources of chill have been nerfed a bit in favor of giving cold builds more chill, which I guess
that makes sense.
I can, yeah.
I like that.
Exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah. I guess then, on that note,
unique items.
We got a long podcast for you guys today, by the way. We got so much we wanted to talk about.
It was 6 months since the last one. They deserve one.
Yeah, fair enough. Unique items have been changed. There are going to be new uniques, obviously. Not really getting into that too much here, but some uniques have been changed. Firstly, just like in a general sense, in these big patches, it's worth noting when they've made a lot of changes, and a lot of uniques have been changed. Even just a lot of things like a lot of weapons have just had their fizz damage increased. So it's worth re-looking at these things when you find them. Often you'll just be like, oh, that's vendor food. But pick it up, maybe check out if it's different, because now a weapon that might have been like just 1 hour vendor food, well, that new DPS value is actually pretty competitive, and that's better than like 5C weapons on the market currently. So you're like, oh, okay, that's actually worth the money. So
yeah,
worth
especially like a lot of the fist weapons like Blood Reaper got buffed from like 150 to 200% damage or something like that. But it was like actually really good if you find early game now if you're using 200s.
Yeah, that's if you like, I think clever players who want some like very cheap, very strong leveling weapons in the first few days will be setting up their PoE trades to capture some of these buffed uniques that people haven't realized are much stronger now. So yeah, there's some potential there. But we've highlighted a couple of interesting ones. One that I pulled out is Death's Oath, which I think you wanted to talk about this too. So Death's Oath is a unique chest. Let me bring up Death's Oath here on the wiki for the old version. So the old version looked like this. This was one that gave... It's a little hard to see this on here, but here we go. It gave a... basically the thing that it did that was interesting and unique was that it gives you a chaos damage aura to nearby enemies. 450 chaos damage to nearby enemies. Fortunately, there was not really much you could do with that, and it wasn't really enough damage to do anything with. So it didn't really get used apart from some like kind of people that loved the theme of it. Now, though, Death's Oath gained some life, so it actually has life on it, so it automatically becomes a much more viable chest, just generally speaking. But the biggest thing is that the Chaos Aura is now a skill, and that's very important because it means that socketed support gems affect that skill, so you can actually now scale it up with things like, anything that scales chaos damage and damage over time and stuff like that. So
that should make it work for the Necromancer, right? It'll add attack and cast speed, do you think? Or no, because it won't affect your friendlies.
Yeah, no, it's only a debuff to nearby enemies. It's like basically like Chaos Righteous Fire.
It is pretty cool though. Like a big problem with the chest is that like the gems you would normally socket in to increase and scale it with are off colors. You would have to probably like for each color it where you'd like do the socketing method where you keep making new sockets would be the cheapest way to get off colors on it. But I like things like this and Albrats where you can socket things in and like or items that have abilities. I think that's very cool. I want to see more of that in the game. Like I don't necessarily think that this is like god tier and amazing at the balance it is now, but I think it's moving in a good direction and it could be pretty cool together with something like Ambras.
Yeah, this is more just like I don't look at this change and think, oh my god, this is going to be the new meta. But it does look like it's going to be something interesting and fun to try. And there'll definitely be some, at the very least, there'll be some hype for this item. So if you find one, you'll be able to sell it for some good money early on. Until people figure it out if it's good or bad. It's a bit of a gamble there. But yeah, that's just a really cool change, because now it actually becomes like an item that you can do interesting things with.
Yeah, I especially think people might be playing around. Obviously, people are playing around a lot with AFK builds in 2.6, and this is something that has an AFK ability, which is pretty cool.
That's it. Why do we want to not play the game that we enjoy playing? I don't know. It's human nature for us to like to try and automate things if possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Bastards. The next one I wanted to talk about was Cloak of Defiance. So, firstly, Mind Over Matter change affects this, because Mind Over Matter now affects degens, so that automatically makes the chest become a little better. But we're talking about, well, are you going to take this instead of the Keystone, or is this so good now that it's worth using on builds that can't reach the Keystone? Well, it got back its added Mind Over Matter effect, so it has 10% added Mind Over Matter now, so you get 40%. And now instead of some percentage regen, it's got 1% max mana regen, which oftentimes ends up being a lot more powerful, especially when you factor in things like the buffed flat mana that it gives you, 100 to 150 mana. So new Cloak of Defiance in this Mind Over Matter meta that we're going to be seeing. So many spellcasters are going to be playing Life Mind Over Matter. And this kind of extends that radius of influence outwards a bit to builds that didn't quite want to go get the Keystone, or, you know, yeah, that's basically it, right? Like, just builds that didn't want to quite reach over and get the Keystone. But I guess like it's ends up being a bit of a stronger effect if you wanted that instead of going for the Keystone. But any thoughts on Cloak of Defiance?
I think it'll be used a lot, and you were talking about like things that can't reach the Keystone. A lot of those would also struggle a little bit on colors. But yeah, I think it'll be used quite a lot more. It'll be something. It is quite a rare item from what I remember to actually find, so it could be pretty expensive this league. I actually thought it would be last league, but definitely now.
Yeah. I don't think it's like going to become the lightning coil of spellcaster builds or anything, especially because you have that available on the passive tree. That's kind of like the key difference there. If Mind Over Matter wasn't available on the passive tree, this would be like lightning coil for casters.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Since
it's
you have
10% more though. It's pretty big now that it affects degens.
Yeah, for sure. You don't. If you're getting this, you're probably not going to go through the Keystone to get the nodes behind. I don't know. Maybe it's still worth it if you're over there.
Those nodes are pretty crazy.
They're pretty good. So I could see doing that maybe just for a stronger Mind Over Matter effect and a lot of extra mana, but maybe. But either way, at least worth considering now if you don't want to quite reach over that, because Mind Over Matter seems to be the go-to for spellcaster defensive setups. So you added Doriani's Fist.
I'm so excited. As I was saying, I love items that like get their own abilities, and everybody's wanted Doriani's Fist for such a long time. So now we can fist our enemies to death with the Dominus Lightning Punch, which is really, really cool. And like now we can actually scale it, which we haven't had the ability to do before.
So it grants the skill, which means you can put the support gems in the gloves to get like a 5-link Doriani's Fist, right?
Mm-hmm.
That seems kind of limited though in terms of power.
Right, but it's still so cool, and we can't put that in a weapon, right? It has to be in the glove anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Doesn't it have like added damage on its own as well? I can't remember now. Do you have it open?
There was a video of it. Let me see if I can find a video of it.
Yeah, it has it adds quite a lot of lightning damage. I wish it did a little more though.
I'll link this in chat for you guys.
90 to 240 to spells, and 335 to 900 to attacks.
So this guy's not got it fully linked, but just to show you what the skill looks like. It looks just like the Touch of God. From what I've been hearing and from the videos I have seen posted of this, it doesn't look that good, sadly. I kind of wish it was good though, because I remember way back in the day when this item was first announced, and even before that when Lightning Tendrils was being teased, we were like, oh my god, Dominus skill. And now that it's finally here, it's like, looks a little weak, but What a
Yeah, but
shame.
it doesn't necessarily like need to be like a god tier meta ability. It's just it can be something fun to make a character on. Every character doesn't need to be like ridiculously crazy. And
That's
it is
true.
just a 5 link.
You know what, Ziz? I love that. I love that you take the time to say that as like as a player that religiously rushes to 100 every league.
I think the
That's
start.
yeah, I know, but like that's really cool, man. That's what I'm saying. That's really cool. I think that's good. So Dariani's Fist has a new skill that you guys might like to play with because it'll be fun. And ultimately, we're playing video games and having fun is the goal.
Yeah,
So
the only way to do a video game wrong is to not have fun.
there you go. Carcass Jack, area damage increased to 40 to 50, and it was like 10% area damage or something before.
Yeah, I feel like that was like all it needed. So now I've actually been using it on my Cycloner, and it's like obviously you already get like the small AoE change, which is really nice, but now you have like a significant damage increase on a chest. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. I don't think it'll be too expensive because there is a pretty easy to get by divination card from channel. Pretty easy to self farm.
I mean, there's not much else to say. It's a damage chest, damage chests, damage chests. If you want more damage and don't want to put a defensive item in there instead, then
Well, it
it's
is
a damage
defensive
chest.
as well. Like it has resist and life and decent amount of
Well,
ES. It's a
I
little
don't
bit
really,
of annoying to off color.
I don't really consider anything that's like of equivalent or lesser power than a rare to be what I would consider like a defensive chest. That's like just the standard, right?
That's true. But I mean, it's better than like those chests that like you give up all of those. Like a lot of chests don't have any life.
Yeah, but so it's not like you're either like, well, I need more defenses, so I'm gonna get my Lightning Coil or Cloak of Defiance or something like that, or you're like, well, I want some more, I want to squeeze out every bit of offense that I can get, so Carcass Jack. It's also worth mentioning that Cherubim's Maleficence was also buffed a while back, similar idea, we have like, it just has more damage on it. AoE scaling from Carcass Jack is a little less attractive now under the new AoE system, but this damage brings it back, I think.
The only thing I don't like about Carcass Jack, which I want changed, is that currently there is a huge downside to Carcass Jack where it also lowers your FPS by 30 because it has improved bleed.
Gore. Well,
yeah.
What about the new FPS dynamic resolution scaling system, man? No FPS loss.
I guess, yeah.
You just permanently have a little bit less resolution, I guess, but no FPS.
I would rather just have the ability to turn it off.
Yes, that would be better. I agree with that. Someone mentioned that on a Hierophant, Dariani's Fist becomes a 6-link because you get the extra support.
Oh yeah.
Hierophant gives the gloves, boots, helmet thing. I can't remember what Hierophant gives on the gloves. Let me check. Hierophant was a bit of a meme class, but he's honestly getting better and better. Gloves get increased. Gloves get 40% increased area of effect. Okay, so that could be your AoE skill, and then you put in your chest your single target. Could be like Earthquake or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of cool, because you can use an Essence helmet with like the more elemental damage, and then you get 6-link helmet, 6-link gloves, Chrome's Heart.
Ooh,
pretty cool.
Yeah, could do. Could do. There you go.
I said too much.
There's the build. There's the build. Some guy's like, oh my god, they figured out my build. No. There you go. All right. Okay. All right. I'm seeing the potential a little bit more. Hierophant, Dariani's Fist. I don't know how good that's gonna be, but
I'm gonna do my best, and Chuck can try to bully me into this later. But I'm gonna try to do a Dariani's Fist this league.
Nice. Okay. I'll tune in for that. So let's get into the strategy talk now to kind of close this out. Boss life changes. How do you think that's going to impact things, Ziz?
Okay. I have
to
count to 10 for this one. So I like Control F through the patch notes, and I saw that the boss changes had happened, and I was just like, okay, so what have they done? Like, how much have they increased the rewards by? And I was just like looking through it, and I was like, but where is the increased rewards? And I love boss farming. That was like my go-to in Diablo 2. That's all I did. I loved boss farming every day in, day out. And I want to do it in PoE too. I want a reason to do boss farming. And there's been so many cool suggestions that I hope they will do some like reward increases. I don't feel like the reward is there right now for doing bosses. Like it already wasn't in 2.6. It was already at a point where it was very meta to skip a lot of the bosses. Now it'll be even more so because the reward hasn't changed, unless it's just not in the patch notes, which could be. So that's very disappointing to me. Like some of the cool changes or suggestions I've seen on Reddit, someone made a post saying added rarity or quantity based on your Atlas bonus. That's very cool. Personally, I like a combination where the more mobs you kill in the map, the better loot the boss drops. So you don't instantly go like, because if you buff boss drops so much or too much, then you'll have a meta where you skip all the mobs in the map and you go straight for the boss. So I would like a hybrid where the more mobs you kill, the better the reward of the boss. Say you have a 0 mobs remaining or like 5% of the map remaining, you get like a really good reward.
That idea has been brought up before, but the issue with that is that map layouts often have you reach the boss halfway through the map. So I don't like that idea so much. But in regards to earlier statement, would it really be such a big deal if people started skipping mobs for boss loot? Like, I don't think people are really going to do that because people still want XP. You don't get much XP from bosses. So, yeah, like, if you're making a dedicated loot farmer who's chosen to sacrifice XP to just farm loot from bosses and wants to skip the mobs, then, I don't know, I think that's okay.
I guess.
I don't really see an issue with that. I don't know. But, yeah, so, for you guys who kind of, like, haven't been following the beta too closely, they basically, like, doubled, that it feels like tripled in some cases, the life of map bosses. And that includes the Atsiri Trio, the Vals, and there was something else too. Not Atsiri herself, but...
Atsiri got buffed by 1.2, didn't she? Or did I read that wrong? I'm pretty sure she got buffed a little bit.
Oh, she did?
Normal
Okay.
Atsiri. Not 100% sure.
Yeah.
No, the Vals did a lot.
Yeah. So that's going to be a little harder doing regular series. Keep that, if that's your goal for endgame, then keep that in mind. But they buffed the XP of bosses a bit to compensate, but they don't. So to be fair, GGG doesn't make public information of drop rates typically. So it's possible, like you said, that in 3.0 they buff the loot drops of bosses and just don't tell us. But from playing the beta, at least, the loot hadn't been buffed. It looked exactly the same. And the bosses are much, much more difficult. And you know what? I actually kind of like that. Like, the boss fights are often a lot more engaging, a lot more entertaining. The problem is, like you said, there's just not much reason to do them a lot of the time. So, if the loot isn't increased in 3.0 and give people some time to feel it out, I guess, over the first few days or the first week or so, beyond that point, then there might be, if your goal is efficiency, then once you've killed the boss and unlocked your bonuses that you need to get, then a lot of the difficult bosses you're just gonna kind of skip, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it was the little like big discrepancies as well. I felt like the Atoll boss had crazy HP, I felt, and there were like some that weren't, like, didn't feel that changed. But and like the Strand boss and Castle Ruin will be very scary now, because in 2.6 you kill them so fast that you don't really get to notice their attack. But if you get a max stack Blade Flurry in your face, that can like one-shot you really fast.
Yeah, those guys are actually pretty scary.
Yeah, it's crazy damage.
And the Kraken guy is always so tanky anyway. But yeah, that's definitely the thing I noticed from it, is that just bosses feel a lot more dangerous because you would kill them before they got a chance to use their abilities before, and you'll be surprised. You're like, wow, I never knew this boss was so sketchy. Did they buff its damage? You just get a chance to engage with the mechanics. So even if you decide to not skip bosses, the boss life changes. It's worth considering that the boss fights are going to be more drawn out, more kind of like you'll have to think. You'll have to use your flask properly. You'll have to position correctly if you want to take them out and do so safely. So just be aware of that. You can't just out-damage them.
Speaking of rewards, the two Roa bosses in Bog and Mugeyser are actually pretty rewarding if you tap all those 3 nests while it's on like 5 or 10% life, or you can call it. I actually wish that would change. I wish that the reward would be based on the life it had when you pressed all those things. Because I don't know if you've ever tried this, but if you fight that in like a shaped, or is it? No, it's not Mugeyser, it's Arid Lake. But either way, if you fight those rows and you press those 3 at 100% life, that is a hard fight. That is genuinely genuinely a scary boss. Probably one of the scariest, especially for the tier.
Yeah, it feels like killing a guardian or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I wish like the reward would be based on how early you click those and not just waiting until it's in kill range.
Yeah. I I kind of don't, just because it's so painful fighting those guys when that happens. But yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you on that.
I really enjoy the new boss life. I just want the rewards to reflect it.
Yeah, I know. We say things like, you know, games are just about having fun. Kill the bosses if you want to do it just for the fun of it. But ultimately, like, reward is a part of that fun. So without the reward, you know, this stuff becomes a lot less. You know, when you have a particularly hard boss fight, you're just like, no, I'm not going to do that again. There was no really reason to do that when nothing drops at the end. So, yeah, so I'd like to see something happen there. So we'll see. We'll see if they like stealth buff drop rates 3.0 launch. Hopefully.
Yeah. And speaking of bosses, they've changed both like the labyrinth and the rewards in there, and the Pale Council as well.
God, man. Let's start with the labyrinth then. Labyrinth changes. So let me just rattle these off real quick. The earlier labs are shorter. The layouts are better. They're more interesting. There's more things in each individual zone. There's less side zones in the earlier labs. The earlier labs have easier Azaro fights with like some of the mechanics being introduced in later difficulties, or some of the parts of the mechanics being phased in over difficulties. And then the rewards of the chests that happen in the side questy things, so like when you do a little puzzle and then open a chest, those are actually like based on the chests at the end of the lab now, so you can get like Arcanists and quality gems and corrupted guys. Like I was leveling a character like level 40 doing Cruel Lab or whatever, and I opened one of those and it had like a corrupted 5-link with good stats, and I was like, wow, man, I can use this. I was like, damn, that felt
very cool.
It felt rewarding, and that was really cool. I was like, wow, man, it felt worth exploring Cruel Lab. So, and then Dark Shrines as well is another big change. Dark Shrines now all give something positive. There's no negative Dark Shrines, so they're always worth getting. There's tons of them. You'll often just find them as you move around. If you get good at kind of like... Actually, the new minimap makes it easy to see the little hidden zones, because it shows the pathable terrain, even though the wall is currently of solid walls, so you just have to like look for the lever if you see that. But you click those Dark Shrines and they give you things like Izaro drops an extra unique, or twice enchanted, like you get another enchantment roll. So there's like those things are certainly worth going for. You can even get kind of funny things like you have Divine Shrine. You just can't die for the rest of the lab. So
yeah, well, that'll probably just be for that zone.
No, I'm pretty sure it's lab. I think it's lab global. Does anyone in chat like confirmed otherwise?
Okay, that's pretty cool.
I think that was actually the case.
I do like the new lab changes, because I feel it makes it like more rewarding and more like sort of like more like an adventure, especially for new players, where you like, you know, you explore the entire labyrinth and not just like, okay, well, I have to do this chore to get my power, and then I'm never gonna do it again. So actually something where you really want to do it.
So I was like kind of okay with lab. I was in favor of them removing a lab entirely, but this sort of changes now that it's fully realized, and actually having run like normal and cruel and merciless and stuff in the beta a few times, I'm like, this is actually good. I think this is actually going to convert some people from lab haters to like, you know what, lab's not so bad. Especially like those mandatory leveling labs that just, you can do them at a bit of a lower level as well now, because there's no traps in the Azaro. First in normal, he's easier, you know, they've nerfed it quite a bit overall, so it's a lot easier to do on level now instead of progressing like 20 levels and then coming back. So worth considering doing it a bit earlier too, because, you know, you might get some leveling currency or items and stuff like that too.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do earlier as well. Like, it's very, very easy now. You can probably do it fairly safely at like level 28 to 30, and I feel like it helped so much that they made the earlier ones like so short.
Yeah, it feels like they are, like, you really blast through normal and cruel really quickly, and even though they're shorter, they're still like more interesting because they gen more stuff into those zones. They like condense the side zones down into the main zones. So as far as like new league strategy, labyrinth farming as like your choice for how to make your currency early on, I think it's going to be more profitable than ever. Uber is just as long and has the same side zones and stuff as it always had, and is just as hard. But now that you've got all the Dark Shrines being positive, those are going to be worth exploring for. Yeah. And the side chests being worth running for as well. In addition to that, there's more keys in general, actually. That was the other thing to mention that makes Uber Lab even more worth farming. There's like 2 guaranteed boxes with treasure keys in them in every lab, guaranteed. And there's less variance on day-by-day basis, so you're not going to have like, well, today is only X amount of keys, and then tomorrow ends up being the day where you run, and then you don't farm the next day because there's no keys. they're all going to be good, so you can farm any day. And Dark Shrines are randomized too, so you can't map those. Like, their effects are randomized.
Something else with all this as well that changed a bit was before you would like have enchant farmers just running through the end and slapping enchants on hubris circlets. But you don't really have that as much anymore. Like, it's going to be a little bit, I think it will shift a little bit more towards putting it on Flavor of the Month unique helmets, so trying to get like a special helmet enchant on a unique, or maybe enchanting boots a lot more. Trying to get leech on boots could be a lot more popular. So at least we might not always be enchanting hubrises anymore.
Yeah, not just the hubris meta is definitely correct. We'll see how that ends up panning out. It'll be interesting to see how that meta develops. But yeah, it seems like it's going to be just like a lot more worth farming in general. Like, even if you're not running a dedicated lab runner, doing a bit of Uber lab when you have keys seems pretty worth. So
yeah,
I could see that. The PoE Council also gets some updates.
It's pretty cool. So they put all of the existing uniques into the storyline to get there, right?
Yeah, all the existing PoE Council drops, so the 4 drops that used to drop, now drop from the quest lines associated with the PoE Council, so the 4 quest lines. And...
Rage.
Ripped what?
Rage of the Council.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean... So, Reach of the Council is pretty dead, but it's a kind of a good, like, early endgame starter bar. So now if it's available just from the quest line, it should be more common, in theory, right?
Yeah.
So that makes it a little more available.
It makes sense
just like
now.
A cheap leveling unique. Yeah.
Do you think PoE Council is going to be on par or even above something like EXILED now? Because I feel like they said they've retuned it and made it harder.
So yeah, they did say in the patch notes that they made it harder. I could see it being like on the level of normal Atziri, maybe a little below that. I think now that Atziri also got buffed, and her bosses got buffed a bit, so maybe a little below that.
Atziri's already pretty easy though, and the book is actually really scary in the PoE Council.
Yeah, it's a bit more hectic. Like, it's a bit more of a cluster with just kind of stuff going all over the place. So I don't think it's going to be quite the same as Atziri. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if it's going to end up being as hard as like old Atziri for like let's say for like an inexperienced Atziri farmer, right? I don't know. We'll see how that pans out. But there's new uniques. So there's 4 new uniques being added. So far they've been revealed gloves and boots, which the boots do some like power charge generation stuff. Well, kind of alright. See if I
They're
can
pretty
find
cool.
those.
The gloves are pretty cool as well. I'm hoping they'll be like, I always like really like an end game where there is like some challenging stuff that people like struggle with a bit in the start. So I'm hoping to see something like Uber Daniel has entered PoE Council, Uber Daniel has been slain, and I get a whisper like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I hope so. So here's the boots. Increased damage per power charge, increased intelligence. They do have life and move speed. Chance that if you would gain power charges, you instead gain up to your max. So you can use them to like help your power charge generation, or potentially with discharge or something like that. And you know, it's damage on a boot slot, so not too bad. They seem alright, eh? Like, they just seem alright. Decent.
Yeah, I think they're pretty cool. I think the gloves are actually really exciting.
So the gloves are an exciting item, even if they're not very powerful right at 3.0 launch because of poison being a bit weaker. But these give you cold poison. Cold damage to spells and attacks.
Yeah, that's
cold
nothing. We have anything. So
yeah,
this
is the first time cold can poison. So that's kind of just that's like, I think you were saying yesterday. It's just kind of like an exciting, a new thing, enabling a new mechanic that wasn't available before. So cold poison might be a little weak for 3.0, but nonetheless, these guys still kind of exciting. And I don't know. Maybe if poison gets buffed over the course of 3.0, like you were saying, then these guys could end up raising in value over time, even if they're a bit cheap early on.
You'd be able to use a poison gem with cold skills now, right? Because it says cold can poison, and then you have a 20% chance just from the gloves, so then you can put in a poison gem for 50.
Yeah, you could use the actual poison gem, and that enables it. Basically, the cold damage can poison enables any sort of source of poison affecting you cold, unless it says otherwise. Or you could use like less poison and gain some chaos damage as well or something. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think they're very cool, and this could be like the 2 most common items. They could have saved like the juicy items for later. So very exciting to see what the 2 others are.
I'm curious to see what the others, and I'm very curious to see if they all have this white leather theme going on. So you can get, if they have 3D art, just get this full like white leather outfit on. Maybe there's maybe there's a helmet and and body armor, and we end up with this full white leather outfit going. I'm interested to see if that's what's gonna happen. So those are those guys. So worth considering. As for your what am I gonna do, end game in the new league. PoE Council might be worth doing now. For a while now, it's been kind of meh. So,
another thing we could talk about real quickly about the end game is that the entire mapping thing will change a bit now, because a lot of people are so used to Legacy and Breach, where maps were pretty easy to get, and now it will be harder. So especially people that like found it like slightly challenging or just okay to maintain maps in these leagues will maybe have a hard time.
Interesting point. Yeah, that 10% breach, and I think breach is available on Zana, but it's Zana 8, so it's not going to have an impact for ages. So, yeah, it's actually... So, well, that brings us to the new Harbinger League and what sort of impacts we think that's going to have. So let me bring up the Harbinger League page. I think if I go pathofexile.com/Harbinger, it'll come up. What? No, it didn't. Damn it. Professional podcast. God damn. Right,
what did you bring up on screen?
Oh, nothing. It just didn't load.
Oh, right.
Nothing sus, don't worry. Where's the Harbinger League? There we go. Harbinger Challenge League.
I was expecting something really bad there. I was like, wait.
No, it's alright. So here's Harbinger League, in which a boss creature will spawn, but you don't fight them directly. Instead, they're a summoner that summons creatures that you fight, and they take damage when you kill their creatures. And they'll also have other abilities that they spam out that presumably you'll have to avoid or deal with. So this seems to be taking after Breach in terms of design. I feel like you go to a location, then there are a bunch of mobs will spawn in that location to kill all the mobs, and then it's even been mentioned in the patch notes that there'll be like a granular sort of thing that you collect in order to open another zone to do some sort of like Uber fight, which the wording in the patch notes, I gotta actually bring this up because I just want to see if anyone else kind of thinks what I'm thinking with this. Let me go to Harbinger. Okay, so Harbinger, where is this part? Where is this part? One of these currency types may lead you to the source of the Harbinger Incursion. Harbinger Incursion, okay? If you can halt their arrival, you'll find pieces of shattered uniques that can be arranged to form powerful Harbinger summoning uniques.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds like it's going to be some sort of like wave defense map.
Yeah, I'm very excited about all that though. But I actually disagree with you when you said it feels like Breach. It feels more like Pirandus to me, because Pirandus had like you had to kill like the mobs guarding the box, and that would like fill up this like counter, and then when you filled up the counter, the box opens. It feels like it's the same thing, like because the Pirandus box is the Harbinger thing. You just have to kill the mobs, and then once it's filled up, you can open your Harbinger box, basically.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I mean, there's a fair bit of overlap with it. There's either two things. There's basically two designs you can do in an action RPG. You fight a group of monsters, or you fight a single strong monster. So, I mean, this one is the group of monsters one. But
Yeah.
with an interesting spin on it, because it's got that single strong monster that you're not fighting directly, which I think that's pretty cool. So overall, it looks pretty interesting. But
One of them has Flame Dash.
Is that in like the GIF or something? Is it?
No, as in one of the Harbingers, they use Flame Dash as their main ability, so you can see it in the achievement. So if I die to a Flame Dash Harbinger, I don't know how I'll react.
I mean, Flame Dash hits pretty hard. Hits about as hard as Fire Trap.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to die to it.
That'd be pretty
Never
funny,
let it
actually.
down.
Mobs start killing us with movement skills. Welcome to 3.0.
Maybe that's
Shield.
what they're like giving them: Valspark, Fireball, Shield Charge, stuff like that. Just like bonk.
Something clear speed harbingers. Oh, that'd be pretty funny.
Then you'll hear Chris Wilson, like when you die, Chris Wilson say, "See, it's not fun when it happens to you, is it?"
Alright. So we have new currency types coming with this. There was a data mining page for this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to locate that right now, but so what do you think of like the new granular currency system? So you can get shards of chaos. If you think about the existing currency shards.
Okay, so if with Mirror and Exalted Orb ones, I think Stream
Hold
Ripped.
on. Apparently our stream is dead again. Yeah. What? I'm fine. I've literally had nothing on my end. Like OBS has been running flawlessly, so that must be Twitch. Refresh? Question mark? We're back. Saved. We're back. Saved. Like, guys, literally nothing on my end, so I guess it's Twitch dying right now. OBS is running
It's fine.
flawlessly. So. Anywho, what do you think about the existing currency shards?
Was it Exalted and Mirror Shard? Were those the only shards for the existing ones, or was the Chaos Shard as well?
Chaos, Regal, Exalt, and Mirror shards.
Okay, I wish there was no Chaos and Regal.
Yeah.
I
guess that's for like leveling. That might be kind of interesting, where you get more Regals while leveling. I'm always
I don't like that at all. So Exalted and Mirror Shards, very very cool. I actually hope they're fairly common, and because I think it would be pretty fun if you like. Oh, you know what? People can mirror an item. I actually want Eternal. I want different chase uniques. Like I love Skyforth. I love Headhunter. I want Headhunter to be a little less accessible. Actually, I don't like the whole Sauna 7 thing, but that's besides the point. I want more chase uniques, but I also want like mirroring rares to be more like less of a life-changing decision like that barely anyone will ever do. So I don't know. I do like the idea of like being able to at least mirror one item or two items here and there.
Yeah, I hope that the result of this isn't just that all these mirrors get hoarded back to standard. I hope that people actually are encouraged to use mirrors in the challenge.
Exactly.
They are more accessible. Like, that would be really cool. Like, you know, if there's like some 95% perfect items crafted in the Challenge League or something, you know, not what you would mirror in standard, but those start becoming mirrored in the Challenge Leagues a bit more, that would be really cool, man.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that more.
I definitely feel that way too, because when I did go on my, obviously I was, for those who don't know, I was trying to save up currency for standard one league where I was trying to buy mirrors so I could buy alternate art items. And when I got my mirrors, there was no desire for me to actually use that on a template because I had already like pretty much, well, I actually had a mirror chest myself, but there was no like need for me. There was no reason where I would like, well, yeah, I really want to mirror an item. It's just so much more. It's such a better decision for me to just keep it for standard. So actually having a reason to use it on templates, as you said, would be really cool.
As far as like the Chaos and Regal shards, I see picking those up in like the first 2 days maybe, and then after that just skipping them. Maybe I'll like pick up Regals for a bit longer because I always chew through Regals on dual crafting, but yeah, I see just like skipping those because 120, if it's 20, it looks like it stacks to 20. 1/20th of a Chaos is, yeah.
That's not even a chance orb.
So oft skippable unless they drop in stacks. We don't see any of the gifts or anything what they stack.
That's true.
If they drop in stacks, then maybe.
How do you feel about the mirror shards?
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that. I would like to see
Yeah.
mirrors being used a lot more. I don't think it would be the end of the world if people could like duplicate items a little bit more often. So yeah, I don't think Eternals should come back.
Oh really?
No, I think that the removal of Eternals and how that creates like kind of a one-way crafting system is, I think, a bit more interesting. And then that coupled with the fact that they don't exist, coupled with an increased mirror amount, means that more people are mirroring like less perfect items. So and then a bit more kind of chase for that perfect item. I think that's kind of a better way to go.
I can see that. So and there are new currencies as well.
I'm gonna see if I can remember these. So annulment, I'm pretty sure, removes a random mod. I don't know how this interacts with master crafting yet, where it's like prefixes.
I was so happy for that. I've been saying that for years. I was like, how cool would it be if it was a reverse Exalted Orb?
There you go.
I think a lot of people have been saying that for years.
I'm sure it's more common than Exalts, but so basically strips a random stat off an item. This I don't know, like how do you see using that? Like certainly this is gonna have an impact on crafting. Especially if it interacts with master crafting, but how do you see kind of just using this as like a regular?
Okay, so a quick example that I thought of just at the top of my head. Say I'm crafting a Valax for my Cyclone, right? And Cyclone's been buffed, so it'll be played a lot more. And I roll Merciless on something, so it's like 179% more fizz damage. And I regal it, and I get 1 to 2 flat fizz. Well, at least you have another chance now of recrafting it. That'll turn it back to blue as well.
Instead of just scouring it, you know, you're just like, let's strip a stat off that.
Yeah, and that'll turn it back to blue, because if an item gets forced back to being one stat, then it's a blue item. So you wriggle it again.
Okay, that's really cool. Actually, I like that. As a streamer, I'm like, that's gonna create some fun moments where you're like, damn it, and you're like, all right, one last shot, RNGesus, please.
Marshall is gone.
And then it removes, yeah, it leaves your thorns or whatever on the item. So I think that's a cool addition. I can see that. You know, I don't know like how often you're gonna use that, but the moments where you will use that.
I will. I love alt crafting. So for me, this is like a really, really cool item. I'm very excited about it.
Engineer's Shard qualities lockboxes. I assume it does the same sort of quality system that everything else does, where it's like 5 if it's white, 2 and 1 if they're blue or rare or unique. I think Engineer's Shard does that. Pretty sure that's that, yeah. I guess you'll just use that on like Cartographer boxes and Arcanists and Divinations.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of this, actually. I don't like this currency. I feel like it's a clunky thing. I didn't really ever feel the need, like, oh, I wish I could have chiseled this strongbox.
Yeah, it's so you get 20% more quantity on a strongbox. Like, I guess that's good when you get more good stuff, but I don't know. This seems also like one that maybe you won't pick up unless, I don't know, unless you do one at 20 qualities of strongbox or something. Then maybe you'll pick it up, but... If they're like blacksmith whetstones, then you're not gonna pick them up that often because it's like if it's like shards of a blacksmith whetstone. I don't know. So we'll see about that one. Binding shard.
It can be good for divination boxes.
Do you remember what binding shard was? I can't remember what the binding ones were. I wish I could find
the one that
data
changes map to another of the same tier, I think.
Okay, so that's Orb of Horizons. We'll talk about that then, and maybe someone in chat could link me the data mine for these currency orbs. Would be super useful. So Orb of Horizons reforges a map as another item of the same tier. So obviously great for like solo self-found and stuff. You can complete your atlas. You've got the link?
Yeah. I'll link it to you. Where do I link it?
In chat. In chat. Yeah, thanks. There we go. Sweet. Legend. So, Orb of Horizons, what do you think about that reforged to another map of the same tier in terms of like completing your
I'm a little, yeah, is that all it does? Like, it just changes like a graveyard to a Phantasmagoria?
Yeah, I mean, think about this. Like, I guess if you get like the Guardian of the Hydra map, maybe you can change it into the Guardian of the Phoenix map if you haven't got that one
Yeah,
yet.
no, I mean, it's pretty cool. I wonder how rare it'll be. It'll be very useful for solo self-found.
Yeah. For sure. If nothing else, it's a good solo self-found buff for completing your atlas and getting those maps that you just haven't been able to get to drop.
Very, very good. So, yeah, I like it. Not really useful endgame as much, I guess. Well, no, it is. It's a fairly cool orb. It looks weird. Is it like a plant? What is it?
Yeah, I don't really know what it's supposed to be. It looks like some weird sea creature thing. Orb of Horizons? I don't know what it's supposed to be.
It's like a plant tentacle shell thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Some
I really don't. I'm like super zoomed in. I can't really tell what it is. Crab orb.
Crab orb. We'll go with that. Orb of Binding upgrades a normal item, so a white item, to a rare item with up to 4 link sockets. Now, I think that this means it's only worded like that because if you use it on like a dagger, it can only give up to 3. So it says up to 4 just for that. So I think it'll always give you the max up to 4 that is available in that item. So this is like
really cool
for leveling. Yeah, like just insta 4 link and rare. That's very nice for leveling.
Very, very cool item.
I'm
very excited. I wonder how rare it'll be.
Hopefully pretty common while leveling. I hope this is one of the ones that you most commonly find while leveling is, I guess, like you'll get the Shards of Chaos and Shards of Regals while leveling would be cool. Like, I think that'd be fine for leveling.
Yeah, I would be quite happy to only find this and never find it in maps.
Yeah,
or at least very rare in maps.
So that's the other thing I was going to say, like, for endgame, this basically just becomes an ALK with a pointless, like, full linking thing, I guess might be useful sometimes, but... So, it's not like that good endgame, but for leveling, that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any potential endgame, really. other than it being an elk. Ancient Orb.
So excited.
Yeah, this is the big kahuna. Reforges a unique item as another unique of the same class. Now, just to clarify, that means that if you use it on unique boots, it'll become another pair of unique boots, not the same item base, but the same item class. So you can't just like instantly turn. What is it? There's 2 for Skyforge, isn't it? What's the other one on the same base as Skyforge?
The Warband boots. I can't remember what they're called now.
Yeah, Stepanad.
Stepanard.
Yeah, Stepanad. So you can't just use this on Stepanad and get guaranteed Skyforths. Otherwise, this would be like as rare as Skyforths. Same problem as like the Prophecy, right? But because it doesn't work like that, you'll see more of these hopefully. And
now,
you know,
it opens up a lot of questions as well. So will it work like a Jack in the Box where you could use it on a belt and get a Headhunter, or will it work on a unique belt if you are in a Nemesis map? So it opens up questions like that, or it might not work to get league-specific items at all, no matter if you're in the league or not. So it'll be very, very cool to see things like that.
I could see it working like a Chancellor, but someone's going to have to sink like 1,000 or 2 of these into the belts to test.
I'm thinking less than 1,000, thinking like less than 100.
That's true, because it's a guaranteed unique, so... But someone's going to have to sink a lot in to test whether they can get Headhunter, so we'll see if that happens. If it does, then combined with the Zana 7, we might see a lot more Headhunters this league floating around.
Flasks as well could be pretty cool to use this on, and flasks, chests, and belts, obviously depending on the belt science.
I wonder if this can give you like a Vink does or something. When it's like restricted to maps.
I don't think it can give boss loot.
Yeah, I'd say probably not, but we'll see. Like these are questions yet to be answered, so we don't know for sure. But yeah, like this. So the idea is like you can take this and you find some, you know, unique. You really want some certain unique ring, maybe for example, or a unique dagger. Then this just gives you kind of like a somewhat more deterministic way of trying to get that right. It's like doing a 5-for-1 recipe, but you get to choose which base it's going to be on or which class it's going to be.
I think it's very cool.
Yeah.
Especially as a streamer, as you said earlier, this will promote a lot of like, oh, okay, let's use this shit on this. Oh my god. So that would be very cool. I'm very excited for the Ancient Orb. Now I wonder the rarity on it.
Yeah, I hope to see a few of these guys floating around. It'd be like the kind of one that's good to find every couple of hours or something, maybe. Or you getting a
You think they'll be that common?
I don't know, like every couple of hours, but when it can roll any unique in the class, and there's a lot of uniques in every class, so...
I still thought they would be like rarer than an Exalt. That's still a very, very powerful orb.
I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know, like... I think it's going to be weighted towards the shitty uniques, so I think that'll help its rarity out quite a bit. Maybe like a Regal, which those drop like never, so we'll see.
Yeah, Regal's probably twice as rare as an Exalt. They are actually pretty rare.
Yeah, fucking Regal's so rare, man.
I mean, sorry, twice as common, not rare.
Twice. Yeah. I'm always surprised by how few Regals I find. It's crazy. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Like any kind of like final words? I guess there's the Harbinger unique system is the same sort of idea. So this league is all about like the granular stuff. So you'll presumably after going to this like unique map or something find shards of the uniques, and the uniques all give the ability to summon a Harbinger of a certain type, which presumably acts like something like a Golem or a Guardian, where they provide you some buffs. So Harbinger of Focus, I don't know, maybe it gives you like crit or something to do with mana or something like that.
Yeah, I'm guessing there will be... How many different achievements for Harbingers were there? 7? So I'm guessing there'll be 7 Harbinger uniques, or have they already said that?
It wasn't mentioned in the patch notes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to find that though, to be honest.
I can find it.
I do remember seeing this.
6 items for the Harbinger Challenge League.
6, okay, there you go.
So they'll probably all be 6 that we can combine.
What do you mean, 6 that we can combine?
Like the shield.
What?
Like you have four unique parts for the shield, and then you combine it into the shield.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be 6 different like
Oh,
things you
yeah.
have to combine.
Oh, yeah. And this could be interesting. How do you feel about the fact that you like find fragments of them? Like,
Yeah, I really like it. A little bit of a pain for solo self-fan, but
yeah. It's gonna be nice to like bartering with your friends and stuff if you're playing with a bit of a group or something you keep in loose touch with. You're like, yo, I found up left. Do you have bottom right? I'll trade you. That sort of deal. So that could be kind of cool.
yeah, I like stuff like that. So it's a cool new thing. We don't have anything like that except the Agnarods, so.
It's hard to judge how powerful these are going to be because we'll just have to wait and see what the summons do, what they'll be like. Well, I think that brings us to just about our conclusion. That's been a pretty decent length of podcasting action for today. Do you have any kind of final thoughts or final tips you want to throw people for this one?
Rip Voice of the Storm.
Rip Voice of the Storm. Are you excited
I'm
for 3.0, man?
I am very excited. Like, obviously, there's been some nerfs and stuff like that, but I'm still very excited. There's nothing that's like killed my spirit for playing the game or anything. I'm still hyped to play.
It's like, balance-wise, was a bit of a roller coaster, and not kind of the most thrilling expansion, I would say, balance-wise. Like, I like the new dot system, the new element system mechanically. It still needs work in terms of, like, bringing some of those things up. Looks like Bleed, at least, is maybe going to be okay. But, and then there was no like, buffs to a lot of underused skills, so it was kind of like a missed opportunity there. So that was a bit disappointing overall, but that is like feels heavily outweighed by all of the new acts and all of the new bosses especially. I love the new bosses. And the new Harbinger League looks really cool as well, so overall seems like a pretty hype expansion.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Like 9 out of 10? That's how I'm feeling.
Well, I don't know. See, it's a little weird for me because every time I actually think Harbinger on its own sounds kind of just okay, but that's the vibe I got from Breach as well, and Breach was my favorite league. So I'm excited, but I'm not excited, sort of.
You're like nervous. Yeah, it's difficult to tell, isn't it? Like it looks like it's gonna be fun for me, but I'm like, yeah, it could be. It could be really frustrating to fight them. Like Parandus ended up being pretty frustrating to fight. So if you're right about it being similar to Parandus, it could be quite annoying.
Yeah,
so
I'm excited though. I'm excited. There's a lot of cool things, and like they've brought back my Cyclone more, so I love Cyclone.
You didn't discuss the Pantheon system. No, we didn't discuss the Pantheon system.
You mean Scion Trickster Ascendancy?
Basically, use freaking oh god, I can't even remember the names of them because that's kind of what it's like. There's two powers and you use those two powers. That's it. Do I have the game open still? No, I don't have the game open still.
Major Pantheon and Lower Pantheon. So you kill things like Aberrath and the Krabi, and you get like defensive powers.
The Pantheon system, I think, needs some more work. Let's just say that. I like the Rice Lather, Life Flask, Recharge Generation. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to run that a lot of the time. And if I'm playing Life Flask build. And the upper left one from, what is it, Act 6 boss? Trying to avoid spoilers a bit. But it gives stun mitigation and freeze mitigation. That's pretty much what everyone's going to use. So unless you're Fire.
Yeah, I'm actually going to stick to my guns with what I said when I first heard of the Pantheon system, where I don't really want this in the game.
I want this system in the game. I just want this system in the game done right. Like, I want the powers to be like Rice Lather sort of powers, where they actually feel like interesting powers. But I feel like this is a discussion that's been pretty hard to death. There's not too much like advice we can give regarding the Pantheon. It's just like pick the ones that feel most appropriate for your build, you know? There's nothing really else to say about that one. Alrighty.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be it. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Ziz. It was good to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me.
I'll see you again in 3 months, bro.
We should do more often.
Yeah, I will endeavor to. I will endeavor to. And you're gonna try and make me, aren't you? Like,
yes.
Get me organized. So we'll see what we can do. Look, you never know. This could be the season in which we do 2 Exiled podcasts. Whoa!
We have 6 months of like no podcast to make up for, so.
Yep. Yeah, we had an extended holiday, I guess. But hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you got some cool tips or build suggestions, or you at least know which uniques are going to be increasing in price a little bit. We'll see. But I'll upload this on YouTube. Hi, YouTube viewers. That might take a little while, but Ziz, are you going to be going live or anything after this? Or are you...
No, I'm gonna go sleep.
Fair enough. I'm going to go work on multiple build guides that I have to get done before launch, and then also a loot filter, and also a build for me. Oh god. Can they delay the expansion?
Well. Yeah, I want that too. One more day, please.
I know, just one more day. I'm not ready. Okay. Alrighty, guys. Thank you very much. That's it for now. I'm ZIGGYD with Ziz down there. And thanks.
Try to die less than I do.
There you go. Oh, the double outro. Love it. Alrighty, there we go.